jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
To the world, he's dead. But soon he'll become the most wanted man alive.
Hello.
Welcome, ladies and gents. Your host Cam's back. I got an exclusive guest, Ryan T. Richardson of Go Tell Someone Podcast Network and of the recent podcast 20 Years of 24. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm again, I only watched 2 episodes of 24 this morning, so
You are pumped.
I'm a little behind. Every morning, a little bit of breakfast, and an episode of 24, at least 1 or 2 to start the day. So.
We've
I'm a
only
little obsessed.
seen it who knows how many times. We gotta watch it like 5 dozen more times.
I'm a little obsessed. I'm not gonna lie. That will definitely come out as we talk for sure.
Oh, totally. I'm even friends with John Gormley, who's been uploading a lot of video clips. He's like a huge, outspoken fan of Whose Lines Anyway in 24, and he just every once in a while he'll just find a clip. He's like, "This is 5 minutes. I think I can sum it up and allow it to be uploaded by without Fox complaining. So I'm gonna upload it." And I'm like, "Thank you. You saved me some time."
Well, it's pretty crazy, the idea of even doing a podcast about 24, because there's 9 seasons, plus legacy, plus how many thousands of people that have actually been on the show, many of whom I always compare it to Seinfeld. Like, how we just binged Seinfeld, just finished it the other night, and hadn't watched. I'd never binged it ever. So my wife and I did that and just watched it all the way through. And every episode, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I recognize that person from this." Terry Hatcher. There's so many people on Seinfeld that are now bigger stars. 24 is exactly the same way. When
Absolutely.
you watch 24, you're talking
Rami Malek. What?
Yeah, Rami Malek. Yeah, Katie Sackhoff. Mandalorian. Chris Diamantopoulos, who played Mo on the Three Stooges. And he just did 2 huge films with The Rock and Kevin Hart.
He was in Netflix's True Story miniseries. He was very menacing. I was like, "What? That's Chris from The Office and everything." Oh my god.
Yeah. When you're watching, from The Office, that guy.
He's the cameraman operator in the final season. Everyone forgets.
Yeah, because you can slap me at any point, but we talked to Chris on the show. Chris Diamantopoulos. I can never mess up his name ever again. But he's the nicest. He's not only Canadian, he's the nicest guy in the world. And when we watched him on True Stories, it was like, "Oh my gosh, that guy scares me right now." That was a villain.
That's how freaky he is just on screen. But I think this show is just going to be a fun takedown because we're not doing a simple just episode by episode basis, because how could we?
Right.
Someone's going to get lost along the way, especially when it's numbered that way.
Well, doing the whole season to me is a lot better because even though so much happens every single hour, You can kind of I did a refresher to kind of see the arc of season 5 and season 6, which I think we're talking about today, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Season 5 and season 6. And it starts off with crazy, season 5 starts off with arguably the most insane opening the show had ever had to that point, and maybe the most insane since.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then season 6 starts with a death that none of it I couldn't see coming. There's no way I could have anticipated. There's many deaths, but there's one that I still, when I watch it, I'm still shocked.
It's crazy as all get out, and I don't think any show can begin a season that way anymore. Even the edgier ones that are still on it. I mean,
yeah.
You don't know if it's certain guidelines or if they're afraid that they'll lose someone in the process that you don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, I listened to the season 1, season 2 conversation you had, which was amazing. Everybody needs to go find it. And and the reverence you had for Person of Interest, I thought was really good, because that was one show that I thought the pilot itself sold me on the show. Like as soon as that came out of the gate, the first 15, 20 minutes, boom, like you're absolutely in. And I in a landmine of TV shows where there's a new show that starts every day that stars somebody that you probably want to see, you really got to pick and choose where you're going to spend your time.
Totally. And by the time it gets to something like, even when they're doing a reunion or conclusion movie, like with Ray Donovan, it's like, okay, now I really got to ace it. Now I got to
catch up.
Side of time and binge a season in one day.
Yeah. I mean, Ozark starts in about a week and a half, and I got to go back and rewatch the whole
That's
series.
the other thing too. I did that with The Expanse as well, where I'm just like, guys, if we're going to do this, you have better not be hammered. You have better be ready, and you have better, we got to do 5. Can't do 2, can't do 3. You will forget it. If it goes the next week, guess what? I got to even remember it. And I don't have time to rewatch an episode just to get to the other episode. That's very frustrating. That's like rewatching the part of the movie you've already seen. That's just, no.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, like the 20 Years of 24 podcast started last spring. And it was this idea that I had that the 20 years was coming up. And my dad taught me to remember birthdays and anniversaries. And so I'm the kind of goofball that posts on Facebook, hey, it's been 20 years since Die Hard came out. And then everybody's mad at me because I reminded them of how old they are. But I think those dates need to be remembered. I think in many ways, Hollywood.
It's so hard to get the birthdays down right, because like IMDb won't even list them right away. You pretty much got to go to like famousbirthdays.com or something like that. And make your own meme and collage. Because like you say, it's like you got it, you can do it, but it's kind of like any post where it's like it was planned in advance.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, my original plan. Let me give you a little bit of history. Sorry, I'm jumping into this.
It's fine. Yeah.
But I'm Canadian, so I'm going to say sorry a lot. But I found my email this morning because I tend to keep stuff surprise. But I found an email that I wrote. Somehow I found John Cassar. And again, the respect you guys had for John Cassar on the podcast I listened to was great because we're on the same page. But I found John Cassar's email somehow. I don't even know how, in 2010. And I wrote him an email that basically just said, look, why isn't there a 24 convention? I said, there's conventions for this, there's conventions for that. I said, I want to do a physical, like I live in Windsor, which is right on the border of Detroit. So we're a border city. Said, I had this idea. I had talked to a venue and I said, let's do a 24 convention. Let's bring in like 2 or 3 guests. Like if we can get Kiefer, great. Part of the draw too was I can get Canadian actors to come down from Toronto that were involved in the show. So I put that up to him. He had no idea who I was, right? I sent him an email and he sent me back within 24 hours. He sent me an email that said only this. And I read it this morning. It said, I'm interested. Nice. And so we had a conversation going back and forth on how this could work in 2010. And the only thing, the best piece of advice that he gave me was, your biggest challenge is going to be scheduling. He said, because they're working actors, they're working crew. And if they get a gig, they're going to have to take the gig. So you're going to have, the possibility of cancellations, the possibility of changing, your whole schedule and changing your advertising. is a reality because you're going to have a hard time getting people to commit to a particular date.
Even for a Zoom, that's just it's going to be hard.
Well, yeah.
If
So I
comes in, the agent says, "Screw it, I'm not investing in you for this project. You suck."
Totally. So it was honestly the best piece of advice you could have given me. He didn't know me from anybody, but it was the best advice you could have given me because I said, "All right, I got to rethink this," and I put it on the shelf. And then as we were getting closer to 2021, I said, "Oh my gosh!" In 2019, I bought the domain 20years24.com, and then I started, kind of gearing up to do a physical convention. So this was fall of 2019. I was very optimistic.
I'm on that same boat with you, where it's like, if you want to do it, if it's been 6 months, and then, like you say, then basically the remainder of the year is plan, assessing, editing, and then, telling everyone, hey, stop being annoyed that I'm gone for so long. You'll understand later.
You'll understand when it all comes together.
I need you to trust me.
I need you to trust me. Either fire me or get out of my chair. That's basically what he said.
I love that line. Get out of my chair.
Get out of my chair. So I did this whole thing and was starting to gear stuff up. So this is like September 2019. I talked to venues. I talked to different things. I was starting to talk to booking agents. And then March hits, and then everything's no, you can't do an actual physical convention, which, in retrospect, worked out better for us.
It totally
in many ways.
Did.
Yeah, because the likelihood we could get 44 cast and crew members together physically, it was never going to happen. But
Isn't
when it's
it wild? So many jobs even started taking shortcuts that should have always been in place to begin with. Like,
exactly, yeah.
I do security, and we had to do both. Digital and a physical report, and then they switched to just digital. I'm like, why wasn't it always just a digital?
or wiping down things, or like cleaning movie theaters.
Why wasn't cleaning your hands already a thing, people? Come on.
It was the most bizarre thing to go back into a movie theater and it was clean. I'm like, what is this place? I've been here before, but it never looked
butter
like
and popcorn everywhere. Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things that are in place now, I think need to stay. I just did a survey for a theater. Should we always wipe down the theater? Yes, you always should wipe down the theater forever. Like
100%.
Don't stop. So Don Cassar steered me right, and so when it came time to do this thing again, I started I reached out to the first person that said yes to be on the podcast was Leslie Hope, who was Terry Bauer on the show. Yeah,
she's become a director too.
She's directed SVU. She's directed Lost in Space. She did a lot of the episodes for Lost in Space, and she's the new Star Trek. She's been doing for the last year.
I'm sure she'll be on Picard soon. And
it's amazing how much she's been doing. So we talked about 24, and then we talked about everything she had going on. And that's when it started to take off. Like people said, "Oh, you've talked to Leslie. Oh, well, I'll talk to you." And the credibility just increased.
Wow. That's all it takes is just you talk to my friend. Well, they vet everything. They wouldn't just talk to just anyone.
Yeah, it's called implied credibility, right? Oh, you must be worth talking to because you've talked to Leslie Hope. And then I actually had a guy from Toronto area that got involved. He's a fan. And he said, "Hey, let me see if I can help you get guests." And I said, "Sure, but any help. It's like 6 degrees, right?" And he says, "Well, I know Howard Gordon, and his name's Justin." And I said, he goes, "I know Howard Gordon." I'm like, "Yeah, sure you do." And he said, "No, let me see if I can get Howard." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. We're gonna get Howard Gordon on our little podcast." that's had
sure you do.
That's had two guests so far, and within 2 days, he's like, Howard's gonna talk to us next Tuesday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? And fortunately, I had like 4 or 5 days. Fortunately, I had 4 or 5 days to get ready because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to talk to Howard Gordon in the X-Files and every other show he's of Awake. I don't know if you ever saw Awake.
That was another one killed before its time. And I mean,
absolutely.
I'm sure everyone was familiar with Gordon as showrunner of the show's work on Beauty and the Beast. And,
yes, yep.
A bunch of other just short-lived, just federal agent and mystery shows. And it's kind of wild how by this point here in season 5 and 6, like everyone's just getting even more and more crafty and but yeah, I mean, for like a better word, it's all these guys being on so many different shows is what makes them so good.
Yeah.
They know what everyone's expecting for every kind of audience. And here, you know, I know Cassar hates it being called an action show, but I mean, it's both an action and a drama and a mystery.
Oh, it's,
so,
yeah, it's a combined. You can't separate one from the other. If you take away the action, it's not really 24. And if you take away the drama, it's not 24.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and most shows exist on either side of that.
Oh yeah, I even saw one of those like Behind Enemy Lines movies that was also by Fox, and I was like, these political scenes feel like an episode of 24. I think if you cut out all this annoying, uninteresting war stuff, you'd have a pretty compelling political thriller, just the political stuff.
absolutely. So yeah, it's and again, the show itself got respect from all sides, which isn't the norm.
It's
all
so
sides
abnormal, and I think we even talked about with the Shield, where it's just everyone was ready to take a chance on anything before they gave cliff notes or just network notes, years later. And it helped that when it finally got canceled, it was just because of money at that point. And at that point, everyone also was kind of just ready to move on to other stuff. So it is kind of interesting how kind of like sister show Prison Break, how it just kind of just got to that point where it's just like, okay, we've said everything we need to say. And
I got to tell you, you're the first person I've ever talked to that referred to Prison Break as a sister show.
I've seen a few fans who kind of secretly wanted a crossover because they're kind of on around the same time. Well,
I fully agree with you. When people say refer to me, and I was responsible for I can name 6 households that I got hooked on 24 just by giving them my box set. So much so that I go to pawn shops and I buy extra sets because I don't want to give my master set away. But Prison Break,
you never know if the world goes to hell, you'll need that.
If Netflix shuts down for some reason, or Disney
Hulu
Plus
takes it down for the billionth time, and
But the funny thing is that when people said, "Well, recommend me something else," after 24 was done, like I was their dealer, I automatically said Prison Break.
Oh, sweet!
Because Prison Break, the show, the word that keeps coming up when we talk to guests from the show 24 is pulse. They said this show has a pulse like no other, right? Because if you watch FBI, for example, which I love, it slows down. It slows right down, then it picks back up, then they go to dinner, and then they do this. 24.
Yeah, you're going to have 2 filler episodes, and you're going to have 5 intense, hard hostage episodes, and then, but both the premiere and the finale are can't miss. And like you say, any other show doesn't do that. And 24 is like every moment matters. The minute you lose them, you've lost them for the entire season. Yeah.
I fortunately didn't get into Prison Break until I think season 4 was airing.
Oh, same. I did it a few years back. I was like, I'd seen parts of it when it was on. I could never. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It's just It had more mixed bag of reviews from both audiences and like critics. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest the time, and just everybody, it seemed like every show would start good and then start going downhill after a while. I like it all, but I understood where everyone was coming from. And
sure, yeah. I mean, there was a strike in there too, right?
A writer's strike, and here we're going to be diving into the writer's strike for how it affected 24 and 06, 07. But it's so funny how, I mean, that show, it was always on at either after 24 or something like House, and it was just like, I can't watch it all. I got to do... I got my homework. I got to go to bed soon. I
threw all that stuff out the window for 24 in Prison Break, where it's like it's 4 in the morning. I have to go to a meeting in 3 hours. I can do one more. What's the point of going to sleep now? Might as well just keep watching it. And I would do that. It was crazy.
Coffee.
It was crazy.
It's a worthwhile headache.
I'll take the hit. I mean, if Jack Bauer can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, if he can do 2 hours and that includes every time he's knocked out, then I can do it.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, so we are gonna get into season 5.
Oh, season 5, it's a doozy. To quote my grandfather. I haven't used the word doozy since the late 50s, but
essentially
it's a humdinger. I don't know.
Humdinger, ain't that a new thing? And it's set 18 months after season 4 and begins at 7 a.m. Jack Bauer has faked his death, and only his closest friends, who have just been murdered, knew about it. Only Chloe has been left alive, and Bauer has been framed by terrorists with connections to the American government. A Russian sleeper cell has acquired nerve gas and posed a new threat. Jack continually is on the run with some inside and outside help and discovers an insidious conspiracy. And you know the rest from there. Can he stop it? Well, yes or no.
I'm dying to know. I got to know, how does he survive?
Right.
Well, I mean, season 4 ended with the railroad tracks, with that image of Jack on the railroad tracks, just kind of trying to find his own way.
Oh, here I go again on my own.
And disappeared. Exactly. He needed some like Bon Jovi, Young Guns music.
Missed out on some licensed music. There's so many electronic like songs that were like in every post Matrix movie, like Switchback by Cell Dweller, that I thought would have been perfect in one of those trailers. And no, the most they got was like something like just a few rap and like Nickelback. I'm like, come on, you guys can do better in those promos.
All right, Cameron, seriously, how do we not know each other? You just quoted Cell Dweller. Oh my gosh.
Great band.
I used to work with them. Very loosely.
Played it, everybody.
I brought Clay over to Windsor once to do an artist workshop for me, but 10, 12 years ago. But I've known him since.
He's a sweetheart, man, isn't he?
He's a great guy. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I even once asked him, "Can I use this in a promo?" And he's like, "Yes." And the minute you got money, Venmo me. I'm like, perfect.
Yeah. No, that is honestly, you're the first person that's ever referenced Prison Break as an equivalent to or close to 24, and Cell Dweller, who is just the greatest guy.
Everyone like heard the song, but they didn't know who it was by. I'm like, these guys are still kicking. They are still out there.
Hey, when I heard one of his songs in How I Met Your Mother, I was like, that's pretty cool.
You're right.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and Clay is just I knew him when he had his real name, so. Scott Albert. Ooh, I just outed him. But
there you go.
But I mean, that's common knowledge. But
the next special we'll be doing.
But thank you for the Cell Dweller drop. That was pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I might even have to play a sample just to let everyone know what we're talking about.
You've heard him before. You just didn't know it.
Oh man!
Everybody out there has heard him at least once in their lifetime.
Oh, they totally have. Whether they want to or not, it's pretty awesome stuff.
Exactly.
So, marketing department wise, I mean, this whole season, were you ever able to actually breathe?
Well, I'm trying to remember if this was the first time they did the 2-night extravaganza.
That's a good question.
I think it was. I think
by that point they were tired of just doing like an hour of commercial free, and they're just like, okay, so we're gonna do what we do the rest of the time, where the premieres and some of the in-between episodes we're gonna do back to back.
And you watched from season 1. I watched from the summer before season 2 started. So I
actually started in season 7 and then went back to season
1.
one.
Did you? Okay.
I had seen part of it on Hulu, and people will find this laughable. I couldn't get into it, but then again, I was in a terrible place and everything. So
right.
I still went back.
You got to be in the right mode.
Well, and I saw why it was awesome, and I was like, I got to make more time for this. And good luck getting into it when every other blockbuster doesn't even have any of the discs half returned. So it's like, well, I'm not going to watch episode 4 and 7 if I can't even see 8 through 9. You know.
Well, I mean, I watched. This is how I went to it was Rogers Video. It was Blockbuster's Canadian competition.
Family and home video store.
So I went in there and I rented the first 2 discs because they were only renting like 1 disc at a time, maybe 2 discs at a time.
Oh man, that's hard.
Oh yeah, so I took it home. I'm like, because what had happened was I tried to watch it in the middle of season 1, and it was the amnesia episode, and I was like, okay, I already don't know what's going on. This isn't a show like Law and Order where I can just drop in and I can understand what's going on.
It's not entertaining.
So as soon as the DVDs came out, I went and rented the first 2 because I'm like, okay, I got time. I'm just gonna sit in my apartment and just watch this thing and see how it goes. And I literally watched 2 episodes. I ran it back to the store. I drove to Walmart to buy the whole set, which was full price. Probably at the time it was probably like $80.
Oh, it had to be something ridiculous.
Yeah,
that market was inflated back then. Yeah,
and I'm super cheap, but I literally was like, I got $80. I have to own this. Like I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in, and I already need to own this. This isn't just something I'm going to watch once. I knew that early on.
Oh, totally. And with the special features and all, and then
Yeah.
being one of the first to embrace that, along with the Sopranos, is like, yeah, you're gonna buy it, and then you're gonna rewatch it, and then
because you're going to miss something the first time you watch it. You're going to miss something the second time. I watch it now on Disney Plus in Canada, and there's still stuff that I go, oh,
it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Sweet. So that's how.
Yeah, because of the Fox ownership, right?
Right. So yeah, it's still here on Hulu in the States. No, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah.
The more you know.
But I'm scared to see how many times I've actually watched the whole series through. It's. No, I'm not embarrassed. I mean, it's probably 20, maybe 20 times all the way through. I probably watched it once a year for the last
20 jokes.
Yeah, exactly. But
when it gets to 2024, well, where will we be?
But I'll still watch an episode, and it comes up in with the Christopher Henderson storyline that when Jack stops and he looks at the camera, he's like, "How could I be so stupid?" After Christopher Henderson locked him in the room. Do you remember that scene? He
totally.
Literally. It's the only time he breaks the fourth wall a little bit, and he's like, "How could I have been so stupid?"
That was great. Yeah, and
I never noticed that before.
They even just stock footage of that explosion, like in season 6 somewhere randomly.
Yeah,
I'm like, whoa, why'd you reuse the explosion? Okay, whatever.
But I'd never noticed that before, and I've seen it so many times.
There's so much stuff we notice in
every single episode, or every single episode. There's somebody I recognize that I'm like, oh, I didn't know they were in 24. Oh, gee.
Totally.
Which is awesome. But season 5, I mean, my gosh, it opens with assassinations.
Yeah, 3 different characters who we've come to love. We've been so through the mountain. There's even times where it's like, I can't even watch this part of the episode. It's just brutal. And and Jack turns himself into CTU and then escapes again, and because there's no way he's going to be turned over to the Secret Service again when they wanted him dead in the first place. And it's just interesting how you start off, is like, this is where it just reminds you, this is a Die Hard type show, it's like there's an airport takeover, they're at the terminal, and all, you get an idea that, again, the President Logan is just a patsy. He's just not good at handling any situation that involves actually being a president. And he's just like, oh no, you won't let anyone die, will you? I'm like, you're not good at negotiating, are you?
You get the sense of that too the day he's sworn in as president, right? Because if you watch it again and you go, the look on his face is like, oh my goodness, I didn't want this. Oh shit!
That's what power does to you, man.
Yeah, and that carries through to season 5 because that's the president he is. He's a president that really didn't want the job and really doesn't know what he's doing, but he's going to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
He has Walt Cummings telling him what to do, thinking that he's controlling Walt Cummings, and not the case.
No, it's a total Dick Cheney, George Bush
exactly.
And it's just so wild how Walt, we just figured he was just, a random staffer, and then those last 2 episodes we were like, oh, this shit-eating prick. What is he doing? And so Wayne Palmer comes back into the front. He wants to find out who's responsible for the death in his family.
Right.
I'm trying to be a little less spoilery as much as I can, but
well, I mean, it's been 20 years. I mean,
I know.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
If we're spoiling 24 for you now,
this makes you want to see it even better. But so I mean, it's just so wild. I mean, any other show that would have been, I noticed a lot of people would often just tune out because if someone dies, they don't want to watch it anymore, even though it's an ensemble. And this is just one of those, anyone who dies, that just makes it all the more cooler. It's like a rare exception to the rule. And it's just like Tony's wounded in the car explosion, and Chloe's trying to avoid being killed by an assassin on foot.
Right.
Her boyfriend is a mole.
So we're not going to try to be spoiler free, are we?
Well,
as much as possible.
Well, I'll at least prevent from saying how it totally ends. So
okay. That's good to know.
No, it's fine.
And it, actually Tony's dead, right? As far as we know.
As far as we know.
Certainly after those first 4 episodes, we know that
brutal stabbing, and it's
so,
just so wild how the first suspect on his list is Christopher Henderson, who played by a comeback role by Peter Weller, from RoboCop and
the RoboCop connection.
Plenty of other sci-fi movies. And he'd already been on Star Trek Enterprise during the Manny Koto era, and I have no doubt that Manny Koto remembered him from this, and obviously he was the lead on his sci-fi show Odyssey 5. And so he just said, hey, come on over to my show here at 24 Net, and I'm one of the writers, and
I can make it happen.
Yeah, totally. Is he one of your favorite supporting villains, or just kind of?
Yes. Oh, Christopher Henderson. Christopher Henderson
totally.
is absolutely. He's definitely up there with Kingsley, with Peter Kingsley.
Oh yes, Kingsley is definitely an underrated villain. Everyone likes to go with like just the very blatant ones. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some great ones in these seasons, but this is like, I gotta say, definitely a lot of the season 4 guys, and then Saunders and Free, and then definitely the Dragons.
But see, Henderson did what Saunders couldn't do. When Jack shoots Mrs. Henderson,
it's so wild how is this like everything you think just all these other guys would do, Henderson will do, because he really is relentless. And it's so amazing to me how people even argue later on when he kills this one gal who's like an aide to the first lady who's become involved in the conspiracy, and Jack is trying to save. People were like, oh, there's no way they got killed off screen. I'm like, then why would it have cut to black? And they're like, I don't believe he would do that. I'm like, he was fine with Jack shooting and wounding his wife in the leg. He has no sympathy. Blink. He didn't blink.
No.
And you saw the gun raised. If you need a silenced pistol to know, and it drove me crazy. I even told the 24 Wicca to correct that, and they refused. They're like, it's not on screen, and only mentioned off screen by the creators. I'm like, the actress confirmed the death. The director, John Cassara, confirmed the death. What else do you need? It wouldn't make sense otherwise for him to let them go when they know too much. So people are idiots. But I mean, just to start off that way, we're just Jack is just letting his guard down. He's like, Chris, he took a bribe, and I was the one who reported him. He wouldn't have anything against me. He knew he'd do the same thing in my position. And it's like, he's just as ruthless as Nina Myers. Is just he was basically your boss. He was above George and Nina off screen. And it's like,
well, Jack's weakness, in my theory, so Jack's only weakness is either people that he loved or people that he trusted, and Henderson probably falls into both those categories. Because
totally, and he's so flustered and everything. He's already had a brief romance with the family he was staying with under a construction worker cover, and so now he's back into the fold with Audrey, and he's like, this is awkward. I got kind of a love triangle going here.
Do you remember the show Laverne and Shirley? Does that sound familiar at all?
Laverne and Shirley.
It was like the age of Happy Days. I'm old, so it was like Happy Days and
it was like a spinoff, right?
Mork and Mindy, like all these shows. It was almost like they were like the CSI, NCIS of that.
Oh, totally. Everybody.
You could spin off a show off of another one, but it didn't have to be named Happy Days, blah blah blah. So anyway, Mork and Mindy was one. Laverne and Shirley was another. But Jack's boss, Frank Flynn's boss on the construction site is from like Laverne and Shirley. He's like one of the main characters from that show. And so I remember watching it going, dude, he was only on screen for like 30 seconds, but I was like, I know that guy.
It really was.
That's the beauty of casting. Like the beauty of 24's casting is that they would pull from your memory, and they would pull from people that had never done much. And
there were all kinds of actors, and they're like at the third stage of their careers. There's a lot of people from like St. Elsewhere type shows, and it's like, they're
Young
on
Guns.
that giant Young Guns. Yeah, there you go. And just 80s hits galore. And it's just like, you might not know their name, but you have seen them regardless.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's what kind of part of the magic is that, when I talked to Debbie Manwiller, who's the casting agent, she and her, I can't remember her partner's name that passed away, but the two of them had such an eye. They had such an eye for either people that had done some stuff and people that had done very little, and they could see the potential in somebody like Alicia Cuthbert or somebody like Sarah Clark, who hadn't done a whole lot either.
Totally. They just said, hey, you are giving off this vibe, she shouldn't have to audition anymore. You got to do this. And when I saw who, it was already not really all that surprising. Like in the first 4 seasons, how everyone pretty much auditioned for each other's roles, and eventually you got on the show somewhere. They remembered you. They just didn't have time to figure out, how to fill all the roles because they, didn't know if the show would even take off at first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I was a big fan coming in of Mr. Show, and I think I was already into Mr. Show by the time 24 started to air.
So you knew Mary Lynn.
I knew Mary Lynn from Mr. Show, so I was like, this is great. Like they brought her in. Season 5 to me, again, this is just my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Season 5 to me was the season that solidified her part in 24, because I believe that she, and I asked Kiefer, and I haven't talked to Mary Lynn yet, but I asked Kiefer. I said, did you even anticipate that she was going to be such a big part of the show? He's like, no, I really didn't. He said, but he literally, again, this is going into the future, which we're not going to talk about, but like, she is so much the heart of 24 in so many ways. When I said Jack, the people that Jack trusts, there's nobody arguably he trusts more than Chloe throughout the whole run. The whole time. The trust grows. He thinks she's bizarre, certainly, but he literally comes out of hiding to save her life in season 5.
Totally. She and some of these other cast members had been on Larry Saunders and Mr. Show.
Yeah.
And this same year, she was in a similar hacker role in the movie Firewall with Harrison Ford. And
that's right. I forgot about that.
And totally. And I'm just like, by that point, her star is just exploding. She's on all the talk shows and humorous, just bit parts. And it's just so wild how she's been on the scene for a while, but everyone was just taking a while to just remember her. And
I don't know how she hasn't aged in 20 years. Like she looks pretty much the same as she always has. Like now,
pretty wild how it works.
Deal with the devil. I don't know, but I feel that season 5 solidified because he literally came out of hiding to protect her, even though the other people were already gone as far as he knew. And he's like, I'll risk my whole he could have stayed as Frank Flynn. This would have been a very short season if he had just said, you know what, look, I'm in love with Connie Britton. And I'm this Frank Flynn. I mean, I didn't get work today, but I'm sure I'll get something tomorrow. I'm just going to sit this one out. I would love to see almost a reshoot of him deciding to not get involved.
That would be wild. It's like, I'm not going to risk me or her safeties. But I'm going to come in anyway.
Her life is worth saving. Like that's what he takes, because otherwise he could have just sat it out. And I really I think that flavors the rest of the series is that Chloe is, his most trusted relationship.
Wild.
I don't know.
By that point, it's wild how she had said in interviews they weren't sure if they were gonna be a couple, and it's like by that time they knew just amongst each other is like, okay, we're brother and sister.
yeah, we're brother and sister. Because I mean, if Jack dates you, you might as well sign your own death warrant. It's kind of a given.
It's a given.
You might not want to be Jack Bauer's significant other.
Oh, it's wild. And who would have thought it would have gone that way? Because she's getting some action in the bedroom, and then she gets the call, and she's just like, after being pursued, and then the son of the gal who Jax has been staying with witnesses Jack, disposing of the assassin of Jack's friends. And from that point on, you just know it's like, okay, and
stows away,
and you don't need to even hear anything. You just see the expression of Jack saying, "Should I, go into commando mode? Should I actually just eliminate this guy here and there? Should I actually take him to the hospital and interrogate him later?" It's like, not worth it. So he'll get away. He'll do what he's been doing. He doesn't get a pass,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing is too, finding Palmer's assassin, right?
Yeah.
Is it within the first episode, or is it the end of the second episode?
It's the first episode.
He does it within an hour.
Within that hour, that first 10 minutes, and you're like, no, they wouldn't. He's looking outside the window. Yes, they just did. And Wayne is there. He's covered in gore, and he's like, I need help. It's like, no need for help. He is gone. And
I got to tell you, I held up till the end of that season. I was
hoping they had
secretly
faked
hoping
his
they would.
death.
Yeah, that when everything falls apart at the end of season 1 or season 5, that he would pop out of the casket and go, "Yeah, I was just kidding."
Yeah, just yanking your chain. It's all
Buy some
good.
insurance.
But yeah, Allstate.
Allstate kept me alive. Allstate kept me alive.
Every politician should use my insurance.
President Palmer, David Palmer uses Allstate insurance.
Totally. And it's just so wild just seeing where Tony and Michelle were at this point. Michelle's just said, screw it, I'm doing freelancing type stuff. And Tony's basically just pissed off at work, and he's like, you don't have to go. Hey, I'm sorry I'm being Amberton of,
Yeah, well, I think they got into interior decorating because they said they were going to meet a client. So I'm thinking it was they were doing a home renovation. They were doing an HGTV.
It did sound like they were doing realtor type stuff, but they weren't exactly the realtor. So it's like,
probably assassination. I prefer that they were assassins for hire.
That would have been a different way to open it up. They're selling to a client, and someone comes here with a silence pistol and burns down their house.
Exactly. And again, I'm gonna plug my interview with Carlos Bernard, because he tells the story of how that season went, and his conversation he had with the creators that kind of changed his whole arc.
Was he just like did his Haysbert where he's like, I'm not sure I won't even come back, fuck you guys? Or was
he was dead. He was on the page, he was dead. And he said he pulled Howard aside and said, do you think it's a good idea just to get rid of me completely? And he said, wouldn't it be more interesting if I wanted revenge for my wife dying? And he said, Howard said to him on the phone, let me get back to you on that. So he basically talked his way out of being fired. He Costanza his way out of being fired.
He totally did. He absolutely pulled a Seinfeld and just said, hey, I'm gonna be here and there, gonna be everywhere.
And because I just recently read the interview with Dennis Haysbert that he was upset of how he went.
Yeah, if he did it now, he would have said, nope, done. Figure it out.
Yeah. Whereas all he had to do was make a call to Howard Gordon. Really?
Yeah. He just, it helped that he was working on it with everyone, and you see those behind the scenes photos in that booklet, and he is giving everyone a giant bear hug saying, no.
Yeah. And Carlos Bernard said, look, I'm a working actor. Why? I don't want this thing to end. At least pull the soap opera thing and keep me alive for a little bit longer. And obviously he's still alive in the 24 universe. So
and what a shame that everyone else is like, it took them a while they're still doing guest spots, and like, no, they need more recurring roles too.
Yeah. He told us, he said, he goes, Tony Almeida was dead until I had that conversation. And I'm like, you had a performance review and then you talked your way back in. That's pretty.
This is why
amazing.
He's an awesome director now on TV.
Yes, he's persistent. He is persistent.
He
absolutely
is persistent. He knows how to get it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's the explosive opening of season 5 colors the entire season in many ways.
Totally. And you don't expect Wayne to even come back after that. And when he gets involved in it, it's wild. And by this point, you're just loving Bill, and from last season, he has total command of CTU, and Curtis is getting to do more and more action when he's the B plot, but man, he's having to, again, if he's not working with Jack, then he's having to do all the other, just, get the nerve gas out of the hospital. And
Curtis had a Jack Bauer mentality though about doing things. He didn't really have to think too hard about what he was going to do next.
Oh, totally. And I got annoyed when everyone had to kind of have a nickname when they were on, like Chase was Jack Jr. and Renee was Girl Jack, and Roger said he was Black Jack. I'm like, shut up. He's just Curtis, the awesome motherfucker.
That's
who
right.
Holds his own, much like Michelle and Tony.
Yeah. It's like the people that trusted Jack were the people I liked on the show. The people that didn't say, well, why are you doing that, Jack?
It's a shame he wasn't on like from the very first or second season, because And at the same time, I'm kind of glad he wasn't, because I would have suspected he might have been one of the other agents who got disposed of in supporting
Right.
like 5 to 7 episodes. And at the same time, it would have been interesting seeing him when the other people were in charge, like Aaron or George. He would have probably been like, "Yep, gonna go pick up Jack and get his family from Gaines," and everybody. Like,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would have totally helped him avoid half this other stuff. You just know it.
Well, and season 5 is the season where Curtis kind of gets into his own, and he develops his own. You know,
He
you
was
have
gonna
all these,
stay a while.
you have all these agents over the years that have kind of popped in and popped out, whereas Curtis became the guy he trusted. I compare Curtis in many ways to that scene where Audrey and Jack are trapped, and he says, there's only one person I trust," and then Tony Almeida busts through the scene like Batman.
Totally.
That's where Curtis is to me in season 5, where he's like, he knows he can trust Curtis. He knows, Curtis has the same sensibilities, and he's not gonna, try to talk him out of doing what he has to do.
Oh, totally. They were the Expendables before it was cool.
Exactly. Ooh, that's the future of 24 Expendables. I like it.
I've been saying that for a while. A bunch of fans in this Expendables contest even made a bunch of like fake posters when Part 3 came out. Like they did some pretty good photoshops. They did ones of Pierce Brosnan and Jackie Chan, and Kiefer was one of the ones they put over Mel Gibson's body. I'm like,
nice.
Yes.
I gotta give love to Suvorov and Martha Logan. Like, yeah. I knew Martha Logan. I knew her late ace the hell out of that show. Like, oh my gosh. Like, Jean Smart is one of my favorite actresses right now, period. And the only reason I even got hooked on her was because of 24.
Yeah, everyone else was like, "Oh yeah, the gal from Designing Women." I'm like, that and a bunch of other stuff. And it's like, yeah, she's been just a veteran TV actress. And yeah, by this step, I did kind of see an increase where, and when she wasn't on a bunch of other sitcoms, she was pretty much jumping on to a bunch of other dramatic stuff, and was like, okay, very cool.
Right.
I've never seen her in the scene before.
The scene where she takes the makeup and throws water in her face and just says, "This is why I'm going out." Like, after she's had her makeup done when you first meet her in season 5, and then she literally puts her face in the sink and washes it all off, and she looked like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight.
It was wild too, because you're like, is she unstable? And like, there's something else going on here. She didn't get this way overnight. She doesn't have a mental illness or anything. She's literally being physically and mentally abused.
By Charles Logan.
Totally. And the only guy who sees through it is returning character Aaron Pierce of Secret Service. This is his, again, he was in the background in the first 2 seasons, and then season 3 he got more to do. Season 4 he showed up here and there, and then 5 he's back to he's even getting hunted down by some other crooked forces at play here in the Capitol. Is like, oh my god.
And again, he was always somebody that David Palmer trusted. So I think with David Palmer dying, you still have David Palmer's presence in the White House with Aaron Pierce.
100%.
In many ways.
No one else could have done it that great, because you didn't know where it was going to go. And you figured, well, he trusted Mike, and then Mike kind of, got greedy and became a, just change. Let's kind of like Logan. Let's just eliminate the truth and cover it up and go home.
Right.
And here, this is basically both a redemption factor for Mike. He's now on Logan's administration, and he's realizing, this fucker isn't taking anything I'm saying seriously.
Right.
And this isn't even about my career at this point. This is about the fact that people are dying, and someone's got to answer for that. And I don't want to be part of an ongoing scandal and all this other shit.
Right.
And I didn't think about it at first, but I was like, well, so Lynn Kress, who he accidentally pushed to the bottom of the stairway, probably is in a coma. Not accidentally, but it just a struggle.
It's up for debate.
Yeah, a Secret Service agent got too carried away, and then she fell down and is like, great. Yeah. So she's either in a coma or possibly dead. And this freak accident, and he never got incriminated, but it was on his conscience, and that's why he resigned, because it's like, I was just wanted to arrest her, and now I unintentionally caused a death. So it's like
Right. Lynn Kresge will be the star of my spinoff called 24 Loose Ends.
Oh,
And I kind of want it on record because it's like I love the creators of 24, but if they take my idea, we're gonna have a conversation. But
they better hire you as a writer at that point and say,
just hire me as a consultant.
Let me write the damn movie already, you fuckers.
Oh, they can write the whole thing. I just want to be listed as a consultant.
I don't know, man. I think you need that Writers Guild money. You need that.
24 Loose Ends is Lynn Kresge, is Mandy, is
Mandy.
Obviously it's again this yeah.
Any character that didn't have their whole storyline wrapped up,
and any character who Jack Bauer ruined their lives as far as they're concerned, right? Because the heart of any good revenge film is the idea that this person derailed my whole life, and
predict
I want to get
the next revenge. There's got to be some other Drazen kid or Russian guy who Eastern brother.
Oh, Drazen's probably got a dozen kids out there.
I'm sure, and they didn't come forth because they didn't have any weapons or something, or they're in prison still. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But anybody who might still be alive that we're not sure whether they were not, they're gone. That's 24 Loose Ends.
And Loose Ends includes Bauer in Day 9.
Exactly.
Is he actually dead, or was he just clinically dead, like in season 2, where his heart stopped beating for a few seconds?
and that's where we bring him back.
There you go. If they can do it with Tony here later in the season, we can do it later on.
Hey, I'm up for even because there's so many RoboCop connections with 24. I'd be okay with Christopher Henderson coming back as RoboCop.
Oh, that'd be cool. It'd be a little too much for me, but it'd be cool nonetheless. It's just, the show is just good at just knowing how to break the rules, while other shows will break the rules and kind of just force them down your throat without giving you time to process it. This one is pretty good at, of course that's what happened. Idiot.
24 is set in New Detroit. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh.
Or Delta City, as it would be
Maybe it could
now,
become a cyberpunk type movie.
I think the possibilities are endless.
Too impossible.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people will always just say this is the best of the best.
Right. Yes.
And would you say that's the case? Because I keep coming back to season 2 and 4 even more nowadays.
Right.
And 5, I guess it's just one giant thing. And
I don't hide my biases. The worst season of 24 is still better than anything else that's been on TV since.
Oh, totally. Even when it's bad, it's great. It's just like the Star Trek effect. It's like, okay. Yeah.
And I don't think there's any bad seasons of 24. I really honestly don't. I'm biased that way. But I don't think there's any bad seasons of 24. But there's degrees of this one worked better than that one did.
Right. Or I didn't care for that part of the installment, but the second half was great.
But when people ask me, they say, what's your favorite season of 24? I'm like, season 1, because I didn't see that coming. It's like American Horror Story for me. The best American Horror Story season was the first season, because they did crazy stuff that you'd probably never seen on TV. Like just crazy storylines. And 24 was the same way. Doing a split screen and having it happen in real time is one of the most revolutionary things, arguably, that's ever been done on TV. So much so that nobody's tried to do it since, right?
Yeah, it's like, how do you out crazy the crazy plot twist?
Yeah. Like it was like my convention. Like, it was the craziest thing I've ever done. But the idea of even tackling a show that was going to run 24 hours and all the logistics involved in doing that must have been insane. And so that's why season 1 for me is it was just so different and groundbreaking. And seeing Dennis Hopper on TV for the first time. And
he was a totally different role from Speed, where you're just like, okay, everybody's gonna ham it up and have the bombs go off. I'm like, it's a little more subdued. He's more suspenseful and murderous here.
Yeah, he's nasty. He's not a nice guy.
And you can let the accent go because he's just a larger than life persona. You can only escape so many.
Yeah. And at that point, TV and movies didn't cross over. Like, it's kind of notorious that Kiefer had been told growing up, that TV was where you go to die. And if you watch like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's what that whole movie's about. It's about Leonardo DiCaprio's character going to TV because movies don't want him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2001, it still felt like that. But by 2004, 2005, you had Claire Danes. You had Claire Danes doing Homeland. You had, all these people that had been on movies.
Kevin Costner got paid $30 million.
Yeah.
$30 million to be on Yellowstone. Everyone's still making
paid that much. Holy cow.
Everyone's still making $400 for the day, and he gets paid $30 million an episode because he's.
I'm a Yellowstone fan. I almost gave up on it a couple times, but
same. Like this new spinoff took me a while to get into. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, halfway through the second episode, I'll give it a take. But yes, that's another show.
I'm not a Kevin Costner fan at all, except I love him on Yellowstone. Which
that's a good point
bizarre.
too, because like he in like free movies he doesn't play Kevin Costner, and
right.
I think that's the other thing too. I had pals who, I kid you not, they never cared for Kiefer Sutherland. I know. Sure. Lo and behold, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, for real? You don't
Stand By Me? Lost Boys? What?
For whatever reason, they didn't either care for those movies or Phone Booth or whatever, but they liked him on this. And at this point, they just accepted it as their kind of 80s, a serious version of the A-Team. I'm like, okay, interesting.
Right.
Who
sure.
would have known? So
I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Actors evolve over time, and it is interesting seeing what roles won everyone over for life and what other roles it took everyone a while to get into. And I'm still facing it. I even saw some people who said, I'm not too big a fan. Should I watch Designated Survivor? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do you watch it? Do you watch Yellowstone at all?
Oh, totally.
The first 15 minutes of the season that just ended, the first 15 reminded me of the beginning of season 5 of 24.
That's a very good way of putting it. The main Russian separatist guy, Julian Sands. Casting, because I guarantee you, he got more recognized from doing this in Smallville, and he was just kind of known as the guy who like gets mugged and leaving Las Vegas, and the villainous, male witch in the Warlock horror movies. So it's like, to see him at this second, maybe third stage of his career, and he's just this ruthless Russian guy, and how he said he was inspired by more recent James Bond movies. And I was like, that's totally cool, because I totally got that kind of James Bond, Alan Rickman vibe from him.
From Julian Sands, definitely. Vladimir Bierko.
There's even a moment where you're almost expecting him to kind of pull a Jeremy Irons, but he doesn't. He he doesn't break his accent at all. He doesn't do anything.
He's a better Bond villain than most of the Bond villains the last 10 years.
I absolutely think so. And you can tell that even the guys who do the Call of Duty games are huge 24 fans, because not only do they reference like the nuke explosion in season 6 in like some of the Modern Warfare movies, like especially games, but they even have some of these same people playing similar roles, including Sands. I'm like, that's cool, because they're doing motion capture where you look just like your character, of the actor. And
why don't we just get him?
And this was even more just outrageously just detailed, because like they capture him after a wonderfully well done like sabotage and siege of the giant chemical factory. Like they get the stuff, and then they rig an explosion after planning charges, and then they got to escape and haul ass and capture him. And then they just decide, well, clearly he will never talk and it'll be too late by then. So they've done a bit of it before, but it never really went anywhere, or someone else would just break the rules and, get away. And it's like, this time is like, no, we got to give everyone bulletproof vests and give them a, semi-real gun and, and let him get away. And
it's pardon me if I'm wrong. Is Edgar season 5?
Yes, he is. He was introduced in season 4, and here we go. Edgar returns, and that's kind of where you get the whole again. He and Chloe are. Everyone thought they were going to be a couple, but doesn't. That's the first time you see Chloe show emotion. In many ways. Right? Oh, totally. And having CTU actually just like get threatened by like the nerve gas itself, that was cool, because it's like, okay, so we're back to the whole season 2 realm of the whole giant facility gets attacked. That's cool. But And it's like, we got glass, we're turning off the vents, but it'll eventually spread in through here. And so it's like, well, to one of them has to open up to get to the other one and turn off the filters. But it's like, jeez, that's something, because you got, again, all these guys who you like, and then some of these new bureaucrats. Like Sean Astin was just brilliant here.
Sean Astin, my goodness, yeah, adding Sean Astin to this mix, yeah.
And that's Curtis's like finest moment, when he just like comes in and says, well, I'm pretty much, no one can do their job here. I am seeing how no one is getting anything done. So I will actually risk my career and I will arrest you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am relieving you of your command. And I noticed TV Tropes noted how the CTU guards kind of become the red shirts of Star Trek. And it's like, interesting. Yes. They're even wearing red now. Interesting. So there you go.
It's unbelievable. Like I've always known about the RoboCop connection with 24, of how many
RoboCop
people
connection, the
Graham, like all those people were from, like almost all I think all the bad guys. Ray Wise, I think everybody
all
was,
of them.
Yeah, I think everybody Red.
Get some Star Trek people in there, get some CSI and Law and Order guys, and then eventually even get someone who's just been on some lowbrow or cult show like Babylon 5 or Texas Rangers. There you go.
Well, all of Clarence Boddicker's crew showed up on 24 at some point, including Clarence Boddicker and Peter Weller. But then, but I think a bigger connection is the Star Trek connection. There's so many people on 24 that had done Star Trek or one of the Star Trek iterations,
one of the giant movies, or at least a giant recurring role. And I know Kassar, before the director, he pretty much oversaw, as a executive producer, he would always forward some actor for the producers to do. And I knew he was a giant Star Trek fan, hence why he took Orville. But I mean,
Manny Cotto, like so many, Brandon Braga, all those people were all part of Star Trek, including like Glenn Marsh. I think Glenn Marshall was on an episode.
Oh, he's on a bunch of them, and often in heavy makeup. And it helped also that I think they did look at fan fictions, and that's where they would have people like sell them a few scripts ideas. So they did work outside the lines on a few other things, and it was cool even seeing how, like, David Fury noted how he had come, straight from Lost, and he had already worked with Gordon on the various Buffy and Angel shows. And so he's like, when he got the call to work on this, he's like, I'm going to do my damnedest to
he left Lost after they won the Emmy. He left Lost to come to 24. Like, Lost is still going. Like, that's like, still going. You don't leave it. You don't really leave an Emmy-winning show to join something else. But
totally. And the Emmys had really changed pretty well at that point. Sopranos is still getting nominated.
Yeah.
Jericho was kind of all the rage on the cult TV show scene, and then you had Battlestar Galactica is taken off. It was like cable TV hasn't answered all the pay channels and the network channels. So it was a cool way to just see that there's some, and my folks watched a bunch of Battlestar when it was on, and I saw how it was possible to just get consumed by a new show with a recurring storyline and not get bored with it, and just want to look forward to it every time. It was TV was definitely at this point feeling like a movie. Yeah.
Well, they'd up the level. They'd up the stakes. 24 did. I give 24 complete credit for that too, because if you ask somebody from 24, Kiefer's a perfect example. I brought that up. I said, do you think 24 changed TV? He said, well, St. Elsewhere did, and so did Hill Street Blues. Like, he constantly defers it. He's a very humble man. He didn't want to say 24 changed TV, but I'm willing to say 24 changed TV for the better.
Because definitely made me realize you do have to pay attention,
Yeah, you're watching a movie. Every week you watched a movie. You weren't watching the TV show.
Because there were miniseries I had seen at that point, like Band of Brothers and Roots, and so it was like, okay, cool. Yeah. But this isn't just 6 episodes and done. Now it's
I mean, I watched the footage yesterday, and at one point I was really tired too, but I thanked the creators of the show for making David Palmer black. I said that was significant as a black man. That was significant to see that on screen. I said, I can't tell you how.
Yeah, that when they talked about how they think they opened up some discussions for
Absolutely.
For Barack Obama. Is like maybe,
They absolutely
but
did.
it had
Yeah.
been talked about for a while. But more or less, I think, I mean, he'll definitely go down as one of the best actors to have played a president on TV.
Absolutely.
Sure.
He's still the president people want. Like if Dennis Haysbert put his hat in the ring for 2024, I bet you he'd get in.
That would be a very interesting thing because it's like if Martin Sheen did that and be like, well, he's too old. If you did it with Tia Leone on Madam Secretary, be like,
Right.
well, I'm not sure she wants to actually do it. She's just a comedic, dramatic actress. And so it's like, would he do it? And I know he said, oh, hell no, I'm just an actor. But you never know. He might just say no.
Here's what I want: Haysbert, Louis Dreyfus, 2024.
Ooh, there you go. A Veep connection. Nice.
I don't know that Selena was ready for the presidency, but she made a great Veep.
It'd be an interesting predicament. Could he at least be an ambassador?
Exactly. Absolutely. That's 24 loose ends.
24 loose ends, baby. Speaking of which, I really am surprised that at this point, we know so much about Wayne, and we'll get to season 6 here in a bit. But
Right.
They totally leave away. We never see the kids again, and they're good
Right.
actors who have gone on to have bigger careers, most of them
Yeah.
at least. And it's just so wild how, that they don't bother with that part of his lifestyle. They just focus on Wayne and how he's like, well, I'm gonna have to work off the grid with Bauer as well. I know how to use a gun. 'Cause
Right.
I had some military training, but it's like
They put him in the field a little bit.
totally.
I forgot about that. You're right.
And they don't. It's like a brief mention, and he's like, "You missed that episode. You're gonna wonder, why is he holding a gun now?
Yeah,
How did he learn how to do that?" It's like because that's how he. And so that was kind of cool looking at it now. It's like, okay, so you can pretty much think to yourself, we never saw how he got elected other than that, he
Mhm.
had charisma and he was the president's younger brother. And it's like, he probably played the veteran card too. And that's how he
Sure.
got in.
Yep.
Say what you will about the loose ends involving the crime scene of his
of Julia Milliken.
Yep, of Julia and Sherry, but something happened.
That didn't get too far apparently.
Nope.
It obviously didn't affect his ability to become president.
Yeah, it made you wonder.
Exactly.
Oh God, so
Crazy.
yeah, man. And that was the other thing too. They did go do some good screenwriting rules, and that is like the more detail, the more you've just lost total believability. And
Right.
And this was really good at just having the plausible implausibility. It's just like, okay,
Yep.
yes, let's say someone can do a lot of things in one day. Generally, most people can't. But let's just say that Jack has his Delta Force training, put to use, and everyone's.
Are you a Bond fan at all?
I am.
Okay.
Were you pretty caught up on that franchise by that point?
GoldenEye. Okay, GoldenEye comes out, and I think I saw it in the theater. No, I saw it in the theater, and I was with a buddy of mine, and
Nice.
We saw GoldenEye, and the scene was the airplane goes off the side of a cliff, and James Bond, who's Pierce Brosnan at that point, rides the bike over the side of the cliff. He lets go of the bike, his motorcycle, and then he catches up to the plane that's going down, and he climbs inside the plane, and he rights the plane so he brings it back up so it doesn't crash. Okay,
Nice.
that's how that movie opened up.
Oh yeah.
And
that's before you get to the factory escape and infiltration.
Yeah. So he somehow flies down faster than the plane was dropping, and he's able to catch it up. And I looked at my friend and I said, "Oh, come on." And he literally looked at me and said, "There's the door." He said, "If you want reality, you cannot watch this movie with me. If you just sit and shut up and watch the movie, we're going to be good friends forever." We still are. But it was the best piece of advice he gave me, because it was like, really, I'm going to analyze, a James Bond film? No, of course not. I'm going to take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So when 24 comes around, I put all those thoughts out of my head. How long it takes. I've been to LA. I know how long it takes to get from end to end. But I can throw
you
that
can only
out the
do
window.
so many knockouts and punches
Yeah.
and bruises. We get it. And at the same time, I mean, James Bond's the same way. It's like, should have
Yeah.
probably already gotten an AIDS infection. And how did
Yeah.
006 fake his death? Not showing point blank in the head, but whatever. And yeah, I mean, that's it's the same thing with any kind of show. It's like, why
Yeah.
would you? And it's interesting how most
Why would I
people
pick it apart?
well, and I don't know why it has to be a different genre for people to realize don't take in the same thing. I'm like, just look at the tone and everything. Like, there's serious comedy, and then there's, you know, campy comedy. You know, it's like,
right.
And some people just can't tell the difference. And same thing with action. I think much like horror, you know, I don't think it. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bad ones, and that push people's buttons, and you go, I just got bored as all get out after the first few gore or car explosions. And I think that's just it. Is like, this is just breaking through some ground, because it's like, it's drama, and the action is, again, kind of as good as the Terminator movies, where it's from one extended chase scene to the next, and you're looking forward to it, as opposed to, like, I'll give you an example. Like, if you get to Lethal Weapon 3 or 4, you take out 5 of those action scenes, you don't lose anything in the movie except just content, you know?
Exactly. Yep.
And you still have a entertaining movie. It's just, you have it all full blown. It's testosterone. It's like on steroids. So it's like,
right.
It is interesting how it's just, when people have so much freedom, they will go bonkers and go off there.
Yeah, I have to trust the sensibilities of the late great Richard Donner on the Lethal Weapon films, right? And I have to trust the sensibilities of like a John Cassar or a Brad Turner to know what to do and how to make it. You know, like, I trust what they do. And
Brad is such an undervalued talent. Just having worked on various other shows like the Stargates and various other mystery of the week movies, you know, from Canada. And when he came on and would direct like half the season, he would do a lot of the same stuff that he echoed in his other work, where he just knew how to just kind of, I think that's just it. Everyone, I mean, that's why the season 5 had some good special features, that not only showing the production design, but how every actor pretty much gets their moment in the sun. And it's just a great rehearsal from then on.
Yeah. Brad Turner is another great director. Like, really, like John Cassar. There's so many Kevin Hooks. There's so many people that came out of 24 that for me, 24 is like a barometer. Okay, if I know this person was involved, I'm going to watch it. Just because I know the level of quality that it takes to be even a part of the 24 team. So when Brad Turner does an indie film, I'm watching it. When John Cassar shoots Forsaken with Donald and Kiefer Sutherland, I'm in. Like, I don't need to watch the trailer to decide whether I'm going to watch it. Whereas there's so many other shows coming out all the time that I have to have some kind of barometer to even gauge whether I want to spend time watching 25
before it inevitably gets canceled or it's like, sometimes you just got to remind studios, be thankful for what you have. People do still continually rewatch it. It's kind of like when we talked about Deadwood and Oz, like, those were shows that HBO forgot were great, and they're too busy complaining about shows that they're not happy to have, like Sex and the City and Sopranos, and then there's still promoting those more and more, even doing movies of them. Like, that's stupid.
Right.
Take pride in what you do and what you promote. It's funny how that worked. I think, had it been a giant like movie or TV budget, it would have been Ashley Judd was Nina, Willem Dafoe was Jack Bauer, and Andre Braugher was President Palmer. That's my dream cast. And Tommy Lee Jones would probably be like the mentor or George.
Yeah, I can see that.
I gotta bring you in, Jack. This is not my rehash of The Fugitive.
And Peter Stormare as Dennis Hopper's character, drew a blank.
Oh.
Peter Stormare.
One of the Drazens.
As one of the Drazens. Peter Stormare would have made a perfect Andre Drazen.
Peter Stormare would have. Yeah, you guys might know him from various stuff like Armageddon and Prison Break, and Fargo. But yeah, he would have eaten up the scenery, probably even nailed the accent better.
Yeah.
What are you doing with my son? Sons of a bitch.
Yes, Peter Stormare is one of my favorites too. And again, he's one that I'm surprised wasn't on 24.
Oh, totally. Speaking of language, did you notice? Okay, so do you think there are more Dammits in these 2 seasons than the other seasons combined?
I
definitely count more sons of bitches and bastards.
Yes. Well, I think the apex of the Dammits was season 4, because that was when Kiefer had found out about the drinking game. And
okay, that makes better sense.
So he was doing it on purpose.
Yeah, by 4, he definitely was aware. Is like, okay, I mean, I'm going to be here a while. This is not going off the TV.
Which must have pushed up ratings, because you'd have to watch it twice because you were probably blacked out from drinking during the episode.
They're still doing the whole thing where it's on after something like American Idol or a giant ass sports game. And so
Yeah.
it was interesting how it was just kind of that, just people would actually stay up late and do something like that. And I know my folks used to do that with something like X-Files. And so it's like, it is funny how that would happen. Where it's just like, yeah, if there's anything we're staying up for, it's going to be a show where we actually want to see what happens, not just because it's on, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Event TV. That's really what it is.
It's kind of a shame that Kassar, I know he like did an episode of Criminal Minds. I think he would have been perfect to helm the rest of the franchise, and he just wasn't digging it. It just didn't have that. I always liked it because it was very similar to 24, and he is like, yeah, but it's still kind of, there's not as much freedom. So I don't think he liked that. And here he got the ultimate freedom, and he would, you know, who would give that up? Why would you give freedom?
Well, that's one of the running commentaries of the actors that were on 24 that have gone to do other shows. And then they're like, I didn't realize how good we had it on 24.
Yeah. I left too soon.
yeah, I left too soon. And I can't improvise. I can't improvise like I could on 24.
Kassar should not have quit during season 8. He should have stayed with it, I think.
Yeah.
Because there were some episodes where the Mylan Shaleb guy who had done some of season 7 where it's like,
right,
I don't feel like you have an original voice in this episode. You're just doing what Brad helped you set up.
Yeah, I mean, it would also be a hard show to come into and, you know, literally try to live another day.
And even look at how the fights and presidential exposition, like the presidential stuff is totally tossed out in that season. And
right, yeah.
And there isn't, like, the fights are quickly done so fast in the dark to where it's hard to see them. And you're like, well, usually you see a lot of realistic choreography on screen. And
right.
He just punched someone in the face with a rifle and there's no blood on his nose. Come on, man.
Yeah. But I will say William Devane, arguably his best acting ever in season 9. I loved what he did.
As I said before, he was pretty much the John McCain of the show, and how ironic John McCain, the senator,
was on the show,
makes a cameo on here, and he liked what it represented, but he didn't like the idea of torture because, well, what do you know? You're talking about a torture survivor. I get it, and
right.
It is interesting how Devane kind of had that same mentality. Both he and Wayne Palmer characters, they have this whole inference where it's like they've done their time in the military, now they're in public office. And now they're seeing that they pretty much got to go back to using guns and stealth, and they're in their damn, business suits. But yeah, when he comes into the fold, it is just so awesome to see him again because you didn't expect him to be actually a friend of Jack, and having to face Logan in his office, and then Logan decides to have his culprits try and, run him off the road. It's just like, wow, at this point, Logan has nothing to lose. He will do anything he can to get rid of the man.
You can't kill Jack Bauer and you can't kill William Devane.
You can't kill Heller, man. James. Yeah. And it's just so wild when he does that. He's like, I'm going to have to drive into the lake. If I don't survive,
Yeah. And I bet he's a method actor. I bet he actually drove into the lake.
I hope
just to prove a point. With Freddie Prinze Jr. in the back. I don't know. Just a thought.
Please do that. That would be better. But that'd be unintentional waterboarding at that point. But yeah, it would be funny if the actor had come to work with water in his car. What are you doing? Just imagining what it'd be like to drown in my car.
Wiping himself down. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
See, we could rewrite the whole show.
Let's rewrite. Oh man, there's so many. There was even one person who used to do like stick figure animation of popular movies and shows, and he used to have one of 24, and he did one where basically Tony turns evil and is responsible for Curtis's death. I'm like, oh my God, that's so different.
What if? 24 what if? 24
then
what
Michelle
if?
comes back from the dead and helps.
We got lots of ideas.
In love with Jack, and then Tony vows after him because it's a love triangle now. So there you go.
Exactly.
So.
I forgot about Heller going over the side of the cliff in this season.
It's a great twist of the rest of the season because, like, at that point, you basically is like, what won't they do? And I mean, Audrey is like excessively bleeding when she's held hostage. Like you can tell her cartilage is very weak at this point when Henderson is using her as a hostage. But it's kind of wild how at this point Henderson gets to do a bunch of cat and mouse kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
Jack has to basically find different ways with Wayne or Curtis to dispatch the various henchmen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I really dug how, you know, when it finally ends, when he's trying to get the various people, you know, he has, you know, Pierce is having to literally sneak back in too, because much like Jack,
He's on the outs.
He's on the outs too. Yeah, he's been pretty
yeah.
much arrested by Secret Service. He's killed a few other Secret Service agents who are on the take, and even Martha unexpectedly kills someone to save him. But yeah, it's just it's. I always thought somewhere, you know, Pierce is out there gonna free Jack Bauer from prison in China or something.
Right.
With Jim Vickers, Michael Madsen's character in season 8, that would have been fun, but it didn't happen. So yeah, I don't think we have anything much bad to say about season 5. I will admit there's plenty of other plot twists, much like all the shows. It's not like with, you know, when you know Nita is bad, then there's no other suspense. There's plenty of other suspense and other stuff in season 1. It's the same thing with season 5. It's just, for the most part, we just think of it where, oh, it's the Richard Nixon season where
exactly. Richard Nixon
done
got a place in California.
Oh man, it's just insane. And
well, I mean, I guess we have to, you know, if we're going into season 6, we kind of have to. There's kind of a big plot point that has to be addressed in order to bring us back to how we start in season 6. Is don't take a phone call when somebody tells you to take a phone call. Don't
ever take a phone call, because Ching, that's right. Yeah. The Chinese council in LA has come for Jack and apprehended him with his men.
Your daughter's calling. Go get that random phone.
Your daughter's calling, and then Audrey comes to the phone. He's just like, "Where the hell is Jack?"
Yeah, it was the perfect disappearance act. But it was like, how would Kim get the number of some random payphone in the middle of nowhere?
Payphone, and I guess he Spidey senses were gone. Used it. Right. Yeah. He used up all that testosterone. So yeah, the superhero power, you know, it was on the off switch. So
his Spidey senses were not tingling whatsoever. And it was like, oh, I guess I better take the call.
What's the line he says to him at the end? It's like, Mr. Bawa, we missed you.
It's also the reason you don't kill Michael Myers, because you can't keep doing more stuff. If you hadn't had that end is a season that had the most shocking beginning, right? The death of major characters, and then that last like 60 seconds of the show or 90 seconds of the show where you're like, oh good, finally Jack's resolved the problem. He got Logan, he did all that stuff, right? He's going to be great from this point on. And then they throw him on the boat and take him they Shanghai him literally on a boat that says Shanghai. And Chang shows up.
Chang shows up in the middle of the ocean. Jack already has plenty of blood on his face, can barely breathe out either nose or his mouth. And he's just looking at him like, just fucking kill me.
Yeah, in the time that Audrey's trying to figure out where he is, he's been beat up to the point where he looked like that in the 45 seconds.
And that's the best way about it. So
Oh,
many other shows would have just had this be like 2 episodes where he is tortured for the next few episodes, and then the plot twist is like, no, I just need 20 seconds in that last thing, and I can fill in the rest of the gaps.
And if you're watching it live, it's like, well, enjoy the next 7 months, because you're not going to find out anything until January next year. So it ended in end of May, and then you had the rest of the year to go, what? Like I remember as a viewer watching that live, and just my jaw was on the floor, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, he literally was going to get at least like a little bit of a break.
Yeah, coming into it late, I knew he got kidnapped somewhere along the way. I didn't know when or where or how. Right. Because at that point, again, you know, people, when we were watching this, you know, if you didn't have streaming or watch it on Fox.com the next day, you know, you didn't have access to this or Hulu. And you had to buy the DVDs. And if you didn't like season 1, you know, why would you buy season, 2 through 4? And, you know, I made good on it. I saw them online, and then I bought the DVDs, and they're just my folks and grandmother too. And nice. I was like, see, grandmother, we got someone else besides NCIS to watch.
That's right.
It's interesting.
You're doing good work.
Thank you. And you did good too. It sounds like you loaned out your copies to more people than I'd ever did. I can't tell you how many times I would loan the first 2 seasons to friends.
And not get them back. Yeah.
I got them back for the most part, but yeah, there were a few, but those guys were just idiots. I wasn't even friends with. So yeah, whatever. Shame on me for trusting them. But yeah,
Exactly.
it was. So we're gonna do a quick recap of season 5, have that play, and then we will be back.
President Logan extends a greeting to his Russian counterpart.
Mr. President, pleasure to see you.
David Palmer's been assassinated.
A year and a half ago, I was told the only way I could stay alive was to create the illusion that I was dead.
Someone knew that Jack was alive.
Jack Bauer is now the prime suspect in President Palmer's assassination.
Chloe, what the hell's going on?
Jack didn't kill anybody. He's being framed to cover up the real reason Palmer was assassinated.
I spent a year securing a weapon that would bring Moscow to its knees. If Russia isn't going to pay with the life of its president, then its new ally, the United States, will pay with the lives of its citizens. I just signed a treaty. Now all of a sudden I find out that the terrorists are still out there with nerve gas.
If CTU can't find this man, Bierko, we're gonna get hit.
If we could ignite that gas before it leaves the plant, the Syntox will be incinerated. Here go! Christopher Henderson was responsible for setting up the deal that allowed the terrorists to gain control of the Syntox.
Who is this Henderson?
Someone I used to work for.
Where?
CTU. He was the man who recruited me. Things ended badly between us.
Well, what are you accusing me now of, Jack? Being in bed with terrorists?
The recording of the phone call that you made between President Logan and Henderson is in a safety deposit box. Which bank?
We have to focus on stopping Bauer before he finds that recording.
As soon as we have the evidence in hand, we're going to pass it off to Secretary of Defense Heller.
It had to be done, sir.
I decide what needs to be done, Mr. Henderson. I never authorized you to kill David Palmer.
We got what we need.
Is Bauer dead?
Not yet, Mr. President.
He has a recording.
Yes, sir.
That evidence directly implicates me in David Palmer's death.
Son of a bitch.
They come for the recording!
Chloe, I want you to prepare the recording for playback. I want you to clean it up and apply a digital signature so we can establish a chain of evidence.
Get out of here, Miles.
I'm just doing my job, Chloe.
If there was something on this memory chip, it's been erased.
Bierko's escaped.
We can't do much damage with one canister of nerve gas.
You're so wrong.
I overheard Bierko talking to his men. I'm certain he said something about a nerve gas canister.
Henderson set up Bierko with a nerve gas to begin with.
He's not going to help us.
Will if we offer him a deal.
What do you want?
To disappear. Just like you did, so they wouldn't turn you over to the Chinese.
Bierko's going to release the Syntox gas soon. We need to know where.
It's a Russian submarine, Jack.
We have control of the weapons system.
Begin the launch countdown.
How much time do you need to cancel the launch sequence?
I won't know for certain until I see how their targeting software is configured.
We're going to keep Bierko and his men out of here so you can finish this.
10 seconds till launch.
That's done. The launch sequence is canceled. You were never really gonna let me go, were you?
No. I'm going after Logan.
If Logan doesn't confess,
How far are you actually willing to go? As far as I have to.
And we're back with season 6.
All right. It's exciting.
Let's play the promo, and we'll be right back.
Sir, you have a ticket?
My name is Jack Bauer. I'm a federal agent. You have a terrorist on this train with a bomb. I need you to walk away.
Everyone back!
He wants you. He wants you dead.
You don't want to make me do this.
Don't even think about it.
This is gonna get much worse.
You're hurting me.
Trust me, I'm not. Don't miss the 2-night, 4-hour premiere. 24 returns 1 week from tonight on Fox.
Tomorrow, the new season of 24 begins, and once it starts, there's no stopping it.
We've proven we can strike at you anytime, anywhere.
Critics give it 4 stars.
All teams, we're moving in.
It's so good, it's scary.
Put down your weapon!
All hail the power of Power. 24, the 2-night premiere event begins tomorrow at 8, 7 Central on Fox.
All right, Ryan. He's
Wow.
the Ryan we love, unlike Ryan Chappelle.
Yeah, that's right.
He knows the radio deal where I just say something and everyone's on the same page. So
We speak Klingon. We all speak the same language. We speak 24.
I need you to trust me. If you don't trust me, I'm gonna something bad's gonna happen. Who do I trust? Ryan.
God forgive me.
Yeah, God forgive me.
Good times. This is fun.
Too much fun.
Absolutely.
Careful.
Yeah.
We might get the giant box set that has the suitcase, because this is the season with the suitcase.
This is the suitcase. You're right.
20 months later, after season 5, and beginning at 6 a.m. in the morning. Man. Jack has been released after being detained all that time in a Chinese prison.
Reluctantly released, too.
Released. He says it himself. You should just release me back. I'm not going to help you. And they're like, nope. Get dressed. Cut your hair. And it's funny. So I always felt like the rest of this season was pretty much like season 2, but it begins even the same way as season 2. He starts off gorily killing someone and then cuts his hair by the end of the episode.
It's the Richard Kimball effect.
It's the there you go. Yeah. It's the
nobody will recognize me if I get rid of this beard.
If I get rid of that just as longest hair. So
and I've had a beard like that in my lifetime. It would have taken a whole lot longer. But again, we're not talking reality. We're talking real time.
No.
There's 24 real time, and there's
Stop it! No, you can't be serious. Reality. Oh.
Get that out of my conversation.
So before you can say Jacob's Ladder, you got a bunch of psychological mind games here.
and you have, if you watch it closely, when he's being released, the way he looks at Chang speaks volumes.
Oh, yeah.
That comes back later, but boy.
It's a weird stance. That's so true.
It's a weird stance.
Bill and Curtis are there, and Bill's reluctantly having to shank Ching's hand, and he's like, on orders of the president, just doing what I told Jack. I don't agree with what he did to you, obviously. I'm your friend. And yeah, Jack doesn't want to even be hugged or embraced, and Curtis gets it, because he was part of SEAL Team 9, I think, he said.
Yep,
so might have been responsible for killing Osama bin Laden back in the day. I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting seeing that, and it was just like, Curtis is like, he never thought he'd see Jack in this dire state, and but yeah, Jack is looking at Ching like, oh man, if I didn't have these cuffs, I would just
put us in a room together.
I would
put us in a room together.
Totally. I would pull a Rambo 4 and I would just rip out your larynx and just
exactly.
I would and bite off both your ears and do some gory death we can't show on TV.
Exactly. I would Mike Tyson your ear right
I would
off.
Mike Tyson the shit out of you. Yes, I would Wesley Snipes and Undisputed.
Just give me 30 seconds in a room with this guy. It's all
Charles Bronson in Hard Times. I would
exactly.
Quote Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. I will fucking murder you.
Absolutely.
Oh man, Jesus.
Yeah, that's some good acting though.
It was good acting because it's just like it. He's looking at him like he's a bully, and at the same because he is, but it's just interesting. He's like, oh, I don't want to even be anywhere near him, and yet at the same time, I can't look at you and not just just have all the pain just come back then and there. No Tylenol will pain.
There weren't words for it until I'm going to reference The Force Awakens. My favorite Kylo Ren line in Force Awakens is, "We're not done yet." He becomes this New York gangster.
For whatever reason,
he stops, looks at the camera, and he goes, "We're not done yet." And he just said it, and he said it with a bit of a Bronx accent, which I really liked. But that was the look that Jack gave.
Oh, totally.
Dang, we're not done yet.
Well, and it's funny you say that because there's a lot of Star Wars moments on this damn show. You
You're
always
right.
get is like there's the Darth Vaders, then there's the Palpatines, then there's the just the various
Absolutely.
bounty hunters and what have you.
I mean, Philip was the Phantom Menace. Come on.
There you go, Philip. Oh, snap. Yeah. So what does this make Ching? Does this make him the Boba Fett? What does this make
Or the
Jabba the Hutt? That's what he is.
Yeah, he's the Jabba the Hutt.
He's
yeah.
the Jabba
Chang is
the
Jabba
Hutt.
the Hutt.
Oh,
You're right.
oh,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah.
This is the only way because we like him. He's a cool villain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Imagine this show without Chang. Like really,
Yeah, but
you'd be missing a lot.
well, and it just needs some of the separate stuff apart because every awesome show has its imperfections. And what I don't like from this point on is, without any sort of irony, every even season goes back to a Middle Eastern terrorist. And it's just
Right.
like,
Right.
I don't mind it here because it's basically a season 2 rehash, and I really love season 2.
Yeah.
But it's not, in my opinion, better than season 4 because, again, Marwan, he was General Juma in season 7. He was
Right.
Logan and Bierko and Henderson
Bierko and-
in season
yeah.
5. And so it was like
Saunders.
in season 5, you had to have like 3 giant ass villains.
Yeah.
And
Gradenko.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, honestly, this is how I used to defend it. I haven't had to defend it in years. But when people were saying, "Oh, they only pick on this group," I'm like, no. 24 is an equal opportunity. The Irish, the Chinese,
all that's
and
missing
the African.
is Tom Clancy, where it goes. I mean, we've had Patriot games type, including President Danger Mouse, but it's like it could have used some IRA guys on there. That would have been awesome. But
Yeah, every nationality gets a shot though. Like when
the
you
closest he
realize
got was Saunders. He's an MI6 prick. So
yeah. But like the roots go deeper than just one group or one nationality. Within a single season, you might have 4 different groups: the Russians, what was the country they made up. But I mean, it was equal opportunity. It really didn't just focus on one particular group. It hit everybody. Everybody got a chance to be bad.
Everybody,
and some were better than others.
Totally. And we actually think at multiple times Jack is going to die, or probably, his heart's going to stop beating for a split moment like it does in the opening interrogation. And it's just so wild how it goes there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it was apples and oranges. Like season 3 got picked on because it wasn't as epic as season 2, but it was cool in its own right. So, I mean, I never felt like the magic ever ended with season 5. I just felt like it became a different kind of show, but it was still pretty cool. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, season 7 I think is very extremely underrated, and a lot of people like to act like it's just a lesser season just because it's after 5. I'm like, well, it had some pretty banged up villains. Does it become oversaturated with a lot of villains? Sure, but
it's a little bad. It's a little Batman Forever.
It is a little, yeah, just on the hinges of, well, okay, what won't they do now? And I think it didn't help that, again, they're affected by the writer's strike. And then when they get back to working, I know John Cassar said he had just won the Emmy the night before for season 5, and then he had to go start shooting for the opening of season 6.
Right. Yeah.
It was like that required 9 cameras for that giant bus explosion. And it was interesting how just seeing how anyone could be a terrorist. There was plenty of other shows before Homeland was on, like Sleeper Cell and The Unit. And so they were basing it off actual stuff like they were seeing in newspapers and what have you. And so it was like, yeah, I mean, anyone for the right amount of money can do something homicidal. And so when we saw ISIS and other crazy brainwashing Manchurian candidate type stuff, it was like, yeah, I'm not surprised to see it on this show. That makes better sense for it to be as opposed to one organization.
And I know, I'm trying to remember what years it were, but Kevin Williamson had said when he created The Following that he was basically trying to create another Jack Bauer. He wanted Kevin Bacon to be the next. He wasn't hiding his love for 24, even to the point where it's called The Following. And this dawned on me the other day. The Following takes place. I'm like, oh my gosh, he even named the show after the opening.
It definitely gave me that same vibe, but I never put 2 and 2 together. Everyone always called it the Criminal Minds, Hannibal. Yeah. It's like, yeah, no, that makes better sense because.
but it was almost too much because, like you said, anybody could be the bad guy, and it was like crowdfunding terrorism. And so the idea almost, to me, it became too big to be able to maintain any kind of I thought all 3 seasons were great, but I thought, the idea of anybody can do it, then that's so much bigger than just saying, well, it's Marwan or it's Philip Bauer or it's whatever. It seemed like a huge thing to tackle, that if you couldn't really trust anybody around you, it was almost like the writing was out of control.
I think it was. They had to apologize midway through when it was on, and it also kind of got to where I think much like season 3, the second half of the season is way better after it gets you that attention, because there's just so much to take in, and it's relentless. It's like, okay, so I loved how, again, they got another 24 guy here. They got Alexander Siddig, who you guys might know as Dr. Bashir. He's basically playing an anti-hero terrorist who's basically
another Star Trek connection, right?
Yeah. So I'll back up a bit. So Jack is asked to go turn himself into a terrorist named Abu Fayed, played by Adani Marapis, who you might know from Mortal Kombat Conquest TV show. And he plays, his terrorist character essentially is just like, whatever you got to do, you got to sacrifice Jack Bauer to me. So he's coming all the way from the Chinese, being released by the president, and the president is asking him, hey, you got to give yourself up. And he's like, anything for you, Wayne.
Yeah, right.
Wayne is now the president, and Bill wants to find a way to somehow, make it work in his favor, where he puts a tracking device on Jack. But he is thwarted because Fayed's men are not amateurs. They got metal detectors. They know you got a device inside Jack. So it turns out it's all for nothing. Jack is being sacrificed, and Bill is beside himself. He's like, I literally just released my agent to be killed, and I'm going to have this on my conscience. He and Karen from Homeland Security are now married, unhappily, and she is a correspondent for Wayne Palmer's presidency, which seems to not be very progressive and have a lot of be going behind his back, much like with David Palmer. And to make matters worse, once Jack escapes, he finds, he works with a bunch of terrorists who want to take down all the other terrorists and expose them for the, martyrs that they are, and finds out bigger conspiracies as they go along. His father, Philip, has been using his private investments and other associations to also buy a bunch of power grids and everything that he can use for his own weapons dealing.
Right.
And is later working with Ching. So
and you also get a name on the guy that's been the puppet master up until that point. You'd seen
who was that guy with the glasses who was talking to the president last season? Oh, that's Jack's evil younger brother Graham, who's spited his guts since Jack unintentionally got an affair with his in-law.
Exactly.
And to make matters worse, they originally planned, and I'm glad they did away with this, they were already kind of they've always been inspired by Shakespeare. Like Sherry Palmer was pretty much the Lady Macbeth.
Oh, absolutely.
And for this, they kind of wanted to go to kind of Oedipus, where they're just like, okay, Philip basically, sexually assaulted his kid, Jack. That's why he went running and hiding to the military, but they did away with it. But you still got that kind of, he definitely laid a finger or a hand on Jack growing up. You definitely got that sense. Like he took he's a whip you with my belt kind. He's definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's a Gary Matheson kind of guy. I always compared those two.
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think of that. He's very much like the serial killer plot in season 2. And
Billy Burke has this, he's on 911 Lone Star right now. And he's playing a very similar, not quite as brutal as Gary Matheson, but you can't trust him. And I remember watching season 6 of and watching Philip Bauer and going, he's got that. He's got a bit of a Gary Matheson season 2 feel, for sure. Just that creepy dad. Because I don't know that there's that one scene where he looks at Kim just a little too long, and you're like, oh, that's where this story's going. This isn't good.
There was definitely that. I definitely got a sense. I mean, even with just the Russians and just the crappy family and all, is like this show is continually going to be very, very shocking. And
yeah,
I think it just introduced everything too quick. It could have spread it all out throughout the season.
Sure. Yeah.
And
yeah.
we were liking how most of these seasons from this point on were Kim Bauer free. She's not running around, doing something dumb.
Yeah.
And here we're back to square one. We got, in-law Marilyn and Jack's nephew, and I don't have a problem with their acting, but they're given nothing to do except Jack, help me, So it's like
right,
shit.
yeah.
So they're plot devices now. And
I think the grandson was put on to confuse, so you get confused with Ricky Schroeder by the time the season ended. You're like, how come he looks like Ricky Schroeder in Silver Spoons? Oh, there's Ricky Schroeder. Oh,
yeah, Ricky Schroeder shows up as an unethical agent who picks a fight with returning season 1 character Milo Pressman, played by Eric Bolfer.
Yes.
Who you guys will know from Stephen King's Haven and 6 Feet Under.
That's right.
In addition to that, Milo is in a love triangle with Nadia, Middle Eastern agent played by Marisol Nichols of Riverdale fame. You've also seen her in CIS and Criminal Minds.
Yep.
This is what got her on the map for us guys. And much like Tony and Michelle on season 2, they have a love triangle, and not love triangle. Well, love triangle here, but they're having a illicit romance here at CTU when they should be getting their job done. Anyway.
Right.
So,
Tony, Michelle, and Bill Buchanan, by the way, but that's another story.
Oh, totally. So at the same time, Jack is continually under investigations. Audrey has been returned and she's been tortured by the Chinese, and Heller tells him, get the hell out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all in between the various, just taking down various other hackers, Russian saboteurs, and other Chinese gunmen. Before you can say Die Hard 200 times, it's happened. So,
and of course, Chang comes back.
Chang comes back, getting the board, and decides to kidnap Jack's, nephew again for power.
Which dawns on me. You know what I'm just realizing now? Chang never left LA.
He never left LA
because if he had gone back to China, he wouldn't have had time to come back.
Yeah.
Again. So he just chilled. Probably went for coffee.
Totally.
What would Chang do for those hours? I'm curious.
He pretty much was scheming. He was making all these other phone calls saying,
nefarious
I'll grant you
schemes.
safe passage, and that's in between the whole Philip, Jack, I am your father for Bill.
Because when he dropped him off, what we just discussed, right? You just assume he goes back, but he does not. Wow. See, I noticed something. Even just discussing it, there's stuff
because
about
there's
this
so many
show.
distractions with everything else. Yeah, and it's like,
yeah.
Did you? But the main reason I'm comparing it to season 2 is just because once again, you got Secret Service agents abusing their power and a coup by the vice president, asking to vote the current president out of office so that they can do World War III with whatever country they think has actual evidence, even though they're open to the possibility this encrypted data might actually have been forged.
Mm-hmm.
They're not taking any chances. We gotta go to war. Pack your bags, buddy. And
exactly.
Much like I noticed some fans noticed how Vice President Noah Daniels, played excellently by Powers Booth, was kind of like Aaron in season 4, just in the total gray area.
Yep.
He's not power hungry, but yet he feels like he can do better than everybody else. And then he's realizing, by the end of it, shit, what have I done? This isn't what I thought it would be.
And Powers Booth is such a presence. Like, again, there's another example of a Hollywood actor coming in and doing TV. Again,
he's kind of much like Mike Novick, even, where he's like, he thinks he can just do everything better, and yet when he hits a just a nail in the tire, he's just has to step back and literally just be dumbfounded for endless hours.
Yeah.
What?
I've never seen Powers Booth, even if like you said, he was sympathetic. I didn't really see it that way. But I guess you're right. It's just that I'm so used to seeing Powers Booth be Powers Booth.
Well, I wouldn't call him sympathetic, but I would definitely call him hardened and just kind of hard to describe, because he's an opposing force, but he's not the villain, if that makes sense. Because like Logan, he wanted to, he'd been doing business with these Russian guys and all this other unethical, private corporations and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And here, even though he came into power through awful people who were, crooked Secret Service agents who decided they were going to kill the president because they disagreed with him on everything.
Yeah,
this is like, Jesus, they misinterpreted Tom Lennox's commands. And it's good acting by Peter McNichol, who you guys might know from Chicago Hope and Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal, yeah.
Total atypical David E. Kelly role, but it would have been interesting seeing him come back and maybe working. Here's another what if. What happened to him? He's probably at a law firm working with Mike Novick.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, you're right.
In my belief, that is where he is.
Yeah. No, you're probably absolutely right. That's probably exactly what he's doing, because Tom Lennox was he was a survivor.
Right.
For sure.
Who do you think he was based on? I would hate to think he was based on someone as unethical like Karl Rove, but it was interesting just seeing how you didn't know how to describe him either. He's just like,
he's like
caring,
Igor.
just go along with it. No one believes it's the right thing, but it is what we're doing. So come on, sugar, let's get it.
It's kind of like an Igor character or something, where he's just kind of the sidekick, and then he's got his own sidekick on top of it, which is Chad Lowe.
Good acting there, yes. He's related to Rob, and it was good acting on his part there as the traitor. And I felt it would mess. There's another thing.
There are a lot of layers there.
Yeah, the guy who's even has them on trial, who's talking about telling Bill to step down. You see him prosecuting those guys, and he's like, yeah, they're being put to death row later today. I'm like, jeez, I would have actually liked to have seen that after all the lives they cost. They killed the anti-hero terrorist after he was getting some serious stuff done and helping Homeland Security. And President Wayne Palmer, basically, gets near brain damage and goes into a fatal coma.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid how they didn't know what they were going to do with him, yet the art prop department has a newspaper in the Redemption movie that says, President Wayne has died. And it's like, well, where would he have gone? It can't very well last another season, but at the same time, there's also other points where it's just like, give the man some water. You gave everyone else has a glass of water by the conference rooms. Could you at least have shown him drinking something?
Yeah.
It's also sucks because he has probably the best scenes, and he's just so underutilized. Like, he is constantly getting his ass handed to him by all the other congressmen.
Yeah.
And he comes into the fold and just like literally tears them all a new one and says, how about you all, resign? And no, I'm not going to step down because I can do this damn thing better than you. And you're about to start World War III, and I know how to actually talk the talk.
Well, he goes through a lot of the same, a lot of the same was season 3, season 2.
And I know some people didn't think he made a good president material. It's like, see, I really dug him there because at that point he kept his brother's, bloodline awake, and everyone was talking about how annoying Sandra Palmer was, his sister, because she's always getting in a legal battle. It's like that made it more interesting to me too, how because A, Regina King's an excellent actress, and B, it was just cool to see just how she's kind of bringing up a lot of civil rights and that her older brother hasn't been able to get done. And
well, she brings up a lot of issues that certainly were issues at the time, but even more so are issues later on.
Still are now. If you bring that up now, it's never going to be brought up on the Senate floor because there's just so many other things. People get bribed, and right now, politics is really cuckoo babies to where is like. This is what we like about fiction because we can actually try and create a believable character inspired by real life people and see how it might progress in some scenario. And
I really think it was an effort on the writer's part to try to address it now through fiction before it became real.
Oh, totally. They were
let's ask ourselves the questions of these things before,
Well, and they were an apolitical show. They all had different beliefs of it. Cernow described him as a Limbaugh friend, and the rest of them, like Cochran and Fury, were described, and Evan Katz, were all kind of moderates. And I know Koto is conservative, but he can at least have a civil conversation, even though he's a Trumper. And the rest were liberal, but preferred not to say. So
that's what's interesting. Like, you probably couldn't even have that kind of a writing crew on right now because they don't all agree, right? It's people that write shows together now. It's just gotten too
extreme, and it just helped that they had all worked together to where, Keefer's liberal, but prefer not to say, even though he's got a cowboy kind of upbringing. He knew how to shoot a gun before he got the show. And
as we said, like, it's like the show had fans on all sides of the political spectrum.
Yeah, and that's why I really loved it when, in all the interviews I've seen with all those writers, they never had a single slugfest. They never remotely reportedly got in anything where they're like, well, I'm storming out of the writer's room. Like, you see that with every writer's room where they talk about arguments or saying, well, after this season, I'm fucking done. They didn't even talk about that. Like, the only time they ever, like, they pretty much used the catalyst for the show was the cougar in season 2. They're like, we're never going to sink that low to where we're just desperate for an easygoing thrill, and it just unnecessarily fills up a few episodes. We're not going to get that infamous again. But yeah, they would have a few other scenarios and plot twists that they thought of, and they're like, that's just too damn much, you know, because they knew how it would begin, they knew how it would end, and then it was just filling in the gaps. So they knew how to outline.
Yeah.
But they never once said, oh, fuck you, I totally disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, we just did an event with them. They're not all on the same page politically, but they all love each other and they all get along.
Well, and
which is the way it's supposed to be.
And and Howard Gordon, the main showrunner, even described how he had a mixed upbringing. Like, he definitely he never brought up politics in his house, but he knew his father was a liberal activist, died when he was very young, and he knew his mother was definitely old school conservative. So he was having everyone of every affiliation over to his house for a party, and so he was just like, I just don't want to make it a big deal. I just want everyone to get along. So I think that just helped that. And you know,
well, I mean, just for the record, we did try to book the cougar onto the podcast, but he's been steady busy with the circus.
He's been
for
too
the last 20
busy
years.
doing a simulated fight scene in some other creature feature. So
exactly,
good and tuck, it'll happen.
Godzilla versus Kong, I believe he showed. That's where he showed up.
Part 2.
Yeah,
versus Cougar.
And that Will Smith movie about the end of the world. One of those two.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
That cougar works.
That cougar would totally be perfect there. So Jack is basically an evolved lion cougar at this point in the story.
Right.
Did you dig how Morris gets more funny lines here?
Yes. Morris becomes a more Morris.
Once they get past the messy moment in season 6 where he's kidnapped by those two British couple, and they're done. Although I will give 24, that was ballsy to have Saeed drilling something into Curtis's shoulder. I remember I was like, how is this on network TV? And you're doing this.
And of course Curtis. I mean,
Curtis is back, but
that's the one. That's the one.
Give him a proper memorial, and they're just like, sorry, you poor bastard. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You get and you could have kept him in the leg.
And watching him live, that's what I'm saying.
It went on too long. It should have been more one of those, like, at least have Jack like make him pass out or some shit. Just it was too forced.
Curtis should have lived another day. I really think that.
Really,
wow.
Because you take him away for the remainder seasons, it was missing that extra amount of badassery. He should have. Curtis should have somehow been involved. Like,
but I think if Jack had shot him in the leg, though, I think he still would have got the shot off because he was still a great soldier.
I know he did the whole, I know he's not playing around, but it's just, it could have been staged a little better, and it just didn't need to happen, but I get it.
That was as much about you remember the end of season 3 when Jack's sitting in the car and he finally gives in and just starts bawling?
Yeah, he cries. He's ruined Chase's life by making him lose a hand and everything.
That's the guy you saw when he shot Curtis. Because he says, I'm done. I'm out of here. Like,
and you even see it when he pretty much has to shoot and wound Tony in season 7. It's like, and then, arrest Renee and, make her pass out. Because it's like you don't see that Jack very often, but when you do, it's very prominent. When he balls, he does it. And yet everyone else will go to a place where not even he would ever go. It would not even be on the table unless it was someone like Ching or just someone who had to die years ago. Like, if it was someone like Mandy, I guarantee you, he'd fucking kill him in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, technically not if you read this.
I think I need to have you on the podcast we're going to do about the kills that Jack liked and the kills that Jack regretted.
Oh, please.
Yes. Okay. Let me write that down. Keep you in the loop.
Totally.
Maybe we'll do that very soon.
You are too cool. It could
But
have
no.
used Mandy. I would have preferred her storyline wrap up here. That would have just been way more interesting than all these other henchmen.
Right.
Because the hacking stuff is interesting, but the henchmen who are disposed of aren't interesting other than that they're becoming a body count. So,
But I think that whole scene was as much about how Jack was going to continue as much as Curtis.
oh, totally.
Because Curtis was unyielding. Curtis was not. Curtis, you have to remember,
Curtis was unyielding.
Curtis was an excellent soldier, and he wasn't going to back down from taking him out. He really
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't like he couldn't be reasoned out of that moment.
Oh, totally.
And I think that's the only thing Jack could have done. But however, watching Jack say, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and then the explosion. Holy cow! You know,
the explosion was great. That brought you back, and
brought him back.
Always talk about it. Totally brought him back, and he's like, he says to Bill, "Reinstate me now, please."
Yeah.
And I also love how, okay, so the deleted scenes up and down. There's some good ones in seasons 2, 3, and 4, and then there's some bad ones where you're like, I can't blame him for deleting that. It just looked incomplete. It wasn't well done. It would have led nowhere. It was redundant. There's some good ones in 5 and 6 that are kind of just extra, they just had to be cut for time. And just Jack just in the car, just saying, trying to, get rid of his burns and everything.
Right. Yeah.
By the rest of this, Chloe and Bill have some good moments.
Yeah.
And really, again, like, I think Nadia should have come back a few later. I know she was even inquired if she might show up. She said, maybe. I'm like, please come back. And
you had Milo's sacrifice.
Milo gets sacrificed. So there's another one where I was just like, great character. You liked him in season 1, and he comes back here, and you're like, you didn't need to dispose of him or Curtis. You know, it's already was enough with Michelle dying, and Audrey's pretty much in a coma, and it's just like it just felt like it needed a little just more organization. Like it could have cut out some of those storylines. What do you think? Where do you rank Faid on all the villain skills?
Faid's very high for me.
Because he has like the biggest body count out of all these guys, just with the suitcase bombs. But it's like you say, I'm like, he's got some steep competition, and yet at the same time, like, just the actor just was, he'd been in so many B movies and off-color, lowbrow movies, and here he's gonna really, he'd been a good guy or just casual supporting role in movies like Troy and Hidalgo, but here, he just totally shines. Like, even
the chain that led up to him, from Cal Penn to like all the people that were involved in that.
Cal was great. You've never seen Kumar in a light like that, and
no.
As much as I will never like Ricky Schroeder as a person, especially for freeing, the supremacist that is Rittenhouse, he did good here as an actor, because this was back when he was civilized before he was being arrested for mugging people at stores.
Right. Costco bandit.
Yeah, who would have thought? There's a guy from Silver Spoons, and here he's, he'd been on NYPD Blue and Lonesome Dove, and now he's in this third stage in his career in another badass role. But at the same time, I was like, you didn't need him. It would have been more interesting seeing Curtis, because Roger Cross just has more charisma as an actor. He would have been more interesting. It would have made more sense to me had he had kind of butted heads with Milo.
Well, I mean, I have my theories. Again, surprise, I have theories. But I think that Rick Schroeder, or he was Rick at the time. I think he was Rick for NYPD Blue. Maybe it was back to Ricky. Anyway,
it's confusing.
That he was brought on for the potential of transition. Right,
and they just kind of worked it in a little too
Let's
fast.
see if he can be the next Jack Bauer.
Because
I think that's
he pretty much was like Chase, and he just wasn't remarkable like Chase. I think he does good in his own right, and the character's interesting. But again, he's just kind of a thug with a badge. He kind of comes off. It would have been made better sense to me had he been on something like The Shield or Ray Donovan. He's a guy. He's a cleanup crew guy. He's not abusing his power with the badge, and to see him on here, like, he pretty much just becomes, well, I'm going to let Jack go AWOL and I come back here. It becomes unintentionally funny just seeing him go around, and is like, okay, I'm going to come in with SWAT teams inbound, and, again, half of them are red shirts are going to get blown up by an explosion. and I'm gonna take down the giant Speed or Die Hard type mad bomber.
Yeah. It became very clear that he wasn't going to be the guy to do it.
Totally.
And they tried it 2 more times after this, which I'm sure you'll talk about in future seasons. And last time they did it, I thought it should have worked. I think they should have taken the shot later on. But my theory is that there were 3 distinct times, and this is the first time they did this, where they tried to say, "What if
they
we
ran out of time?"
Yeah. What if we transition Jack to more of a supportive role and let the younger guy do the physical stuff? Because I mean, I know how I feel at 53, right? And so I would watch Kiefer and I'd go, how much longer can he do this? Like, just physically, he's
totally.
Yeah, like
the most he can. He's like Pierce Brosnan. Is like the most he can do is do 1 punch and 1 interrogation scene, and then breaks someone's neck, or does again a giant machine gun and he mows down 10 people. That's all he can do to make it believable enough within the action realm of things. He can't do what all the expendable guys are doing, where they're breaking their necks in giant CGI helicopters and jumping out, mowing down dozens of people. They can't do it.
Which is why I understood why he did Designated Survivor after. Kind of he's on the opposite side of the table.
It was like a classier, like 24. It's like it had the West Wing and 24 momentum, but less of the Die Hard momentum. But
and then of course The Fugitive.
The Fugitive show where
he's more of a George Mason than he is Jack Bauer.
Yeah, and he's working with his 24 director Stephen Hopkins from season 1.
Yeah. That was another moment I'm glad I asked Hopkins about. And again, I'm calling him Hopkins.
I'm glad you got to meet him, because
I call him Hopkins like we're best friends. We're not, but I said, I asked the question, was it different directing Jack or Kiefer in 24 than it was doing The Fugitive? And he had a great answer to that.
Well, and it's such a shame that there's so many good shows on that Quibi format that never got seen, and they had to be sold to Voodoo. And so it's just like, these guys are just used to being in movies, and they'll take any credibility because they've been just fortunate enough to just do a lot of notable guest spots and festival movies that people did widely see. And I will say, I still think this is a kick-ass season, and I can name numerous other actors here, some who have even are supporting ones who have now gone on to be bigger, like giant superstars. Like we're talking in like
Regina King.
Right, Regina King, but like even
Watchmen. Gosh.
Remember the mentally handicapped guy who's having to help his hacker brother? Those guys have been in a bunch of other stuff. Like we're talking like SVU type shows and A24, Apple TV type stuff. So it's like
right. Was Rami Malek in season 6 or season?
Season 8. And
he's season 8.
Yeah.
So it's all a blur.
It's all a blur, and.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many people that you now see on everything.
You see everywhere. And I know David Fury, Alexander Siddig said this in an interview years ago. He was so glad to get non-terrorist roles after this. And I don't know if he did this part of, just the money, but I think he liked how there was an angle to it. He's like, okay, I'm at least an anti-hero. I'm taking down terrorists and everything. But he got a gig for like a bunch of other movies that same year. And it was just so hysterical because basically David Fury, one of the lead writers, had an arc planned for him. And then he gets the call, and when Siddig is filming, Fury is literally infuriated. And he goes, Siddig, you fucked us as he's walking through. And so because he was so pissed off and there was no other way to make it work, he's like, that's why he wrote in the bombing death.
Wow.
And that, incapacitates President Wayne Palmer. So this is like, she's, but I do wish they could have outlined this a bit more, but I think, unfortunately, just the Emmy win just clouded their judgment. It was just too good.
It is one of those things too. It's like, they really, when you say, they had 13 episodes they were greenlit for, so they didn't even have a full 24 to start. And then they go, oh, I guess we better write 11 more. Like it was like, because I mean, and we've talked about this already, how fickle TV is. The idea is if you get into something and you're like into the show, and then they go, nope, we don't like it, or it didn't resonate with whatever demographic.
This
is
like a greatest hits, but some of the best moments, they take a while getting there. And by that time, like if this were a movie, you would already be way the hell worn out by that point. You would be
I could see where they were kind of hands off a bit. Let's not do too much homework, because it may not continue past 13 episodes.
They didn't know if they'd get another year, and it was one of those, it just made you wish, hey, do we got it or not? You know, give us an ultimatum and we'll give you the best damn season you've ever seen.
and you got to give them credit for the idea of maintaining the real-time format, because there's no rule book out there as to how to do a real-time show. It had never been the closest thing you might have is SNL.
All they can do is break their own rules. And
that goes live every week, right? Like, other than that, there's really no other template where you can say, well, this show did the real-time format, so it should work for us. And to the point that nobody's tried to do it since. So it's like,
can't replicate.
Yeah, you look at some of the restraints around it and some of the things they could have done better, and it's like, but still nobody was trying to attempt this. Like, everybody knew it was a crazy idea.
Pretty much, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was cool seeing Chloe take some time off, and her charisma with Morris, which is was great, and it was just cool to just see him get in some lines, because it was just one of those, man, should have been here all this time. And it was interesting if you go back and read like the 24 books that are out there. It's so interesting seeing how there are times where Milo and Nina and Jack and Tony were all working together, and they would occasionally mention Curtis because they knew he was working at one of the CTUs in like Boston and would come over. So when you get that stuff to your mind, it is kind of cool to know. It's like, hey, he has a cool last stand, but he's been doing it all in those books, years ago.
And we actually did an episode where we had 3 of the authors on. We had James Swallow, David Mack, and Dayton
Swallow
Ward.
is such a cool guy, isn't he? He was on another podcast I heard.
They are so good. They're just so easy to talk to, but they're talking about being able to stretch that character and kind of bring some elements in, and how much the creators gave them free reign to kind of do mostly what they wanted to do. They would even
use the Wiccas. They would say, hey, thank you guys, we couldn't keep it straight, and
yeah exactly.
And such a shame that there's like 4-5 different like CTU agents that are like recurring, like Hal, Ryan, Jamal, and I feel like those guys could have gotten a little more time. Now, fun fact, I take it Robin Powers?
Robin Powers,
played by Tony Wayne. He was always in the background. He was like he was like one of the featured background characters who wasn't an extra in like the first few seasons, and then he even played a character in the game who gets killed. And what's funny is this is like the first time where we actually like fully see his face, and it's just so funny. He comes in and sees Morris, taking his prescription in the restroom, and he's like, okay then. And it's just so funny. This is where it's once again another season 2 throwback, because the last time you saw that, Michelle was using the phone in the restroom, and they're like, why are you using the phone in the restroom? So it's just so funny just seeing that whole, everyone hates using the restroom at CTU.
Well, Chloe chased him into the bathroom to see if he was drinking.
And he's like, I just need to take a leak. I guess I'll wait, or maybe use the women's. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, at least he got to go to the bathroom on that show. Nobody else even had a shot.
Nah, he had to go back and dissolve the grid with the drone strike dissolving.
Well, I'll tell you, here's the team up I never thought I'd see in season 6. It was Charles Logan and Jack Bauer.
That was what was also interesting. It also just felt like, I wish that's what it could have been. Like, like
I'd watch a show with just the 2 of them.
Yeah, it should have been Logan sold out and Jack had to keep interrogating him for hours on end and find ways to bypass the law and other stuff. That would have been way more interesting, as opposed to, he shows up just randomly, and it just felt like they were pulling a Prison Break there. It's like, well, we need an easy way for 2 people who would never in any logic work together against unusual things. It's like, I just would have rather they had brought in someone already established. It would have been way more interesting at that point. But in all fairness, it is interesting. It's cool to know that, again, Martha has a better existence, and
you get that story.
Agent Pierce is now basically her husband, I guess, question mark, or just caring for her. And then he comes
and she knows her way around a letter opener. Was it a letter opener? I'm trying to remember now.
That's what was so wild. Yeah, this is like, I thought for the longest time he was dead. So when he came back in season 8, I was just like, And what's funny is my folks and grandparents at that time, they hadn't seen all the other seasons. So they're like, well, the president's just making a decision. I'm like, no, this is the equivalent of hiring an oil tycoon or something. It's like, stupid. No one would ever do that.
Well, here's the thing with Logan is because he had no spine, she couldn't really affect his spine, so he's fine.
Oh yeah, and so yeah, we thought he was dead here.
No
with
vital
the letter
organs.
opener stabbing, and then turns out he's dead later from suicide caused coma.
Right, yeah.
Funny how
Crazy.
that works.
Or is he a loose end?
No, like the season 8 book confirmed it.
Oh, the season 8 book confirmed it. Oh, I guess
and that also confirmed that Chase was actually not killed in the season 6 Valencia explosion. He was actually on the run, and
I did not realize it was confirmed.
And Jack has to work. The reason he escapes to London is thanks to Mandy.
Okay.
She happens to be sent out to kill him, and he basically decides to bribe her and says, "If you help me escape, I'm paying everything."
Oh, see, I haven't read all that. I haven't read all of them. Yeah.
I haven't read them all either. I've read a good chunk of them, and a lot of them were pretty cool. And I'll definitely invite you to an episode where we talk all the web series, phone shorts, and everything.
Okay.
And books, and even the video game and India TV show. But yeah, more
Amazing.
or less. So you would still rate this as a pretty must-see season. It's just take it or leave it.
Yeah, it is a must see because again, there's so many different relationships that are explored. Your Morris and Chloe. That if you glossed over this one, you'd miss that story, which I think is vital.
Oh,
you'd
totally.
miss the extended Palmer family. You'd miss there's a lot.
It's not at its best, but even though it is body count heavy and pretty much literally 90% of the characters get wiped off the face of the earth, it's really. It would still be better than, say, various other disappointing sequels to various franchises.
I agree.
Where there was so much to avoid. And it's like, there's still some pretty kick-ass acting and plot twists that make you go, hey, okay. And so you are looking more forward to solving the conspiracy, even though it's not as tightly knit.
Right.
Any other show would have or movie would have dropped the ball, and you would be not even make it 10, 20 minutes in, and it's not... Yeah. It's not batshit crazy like a Matrix sequel you might not have cared for, or even like Highlander 2, where what were they thinking? Were they on acid? It's not like
right.
It's never like
Speed 2.
Oh yeah, we're definitely not as so bad as good. Where you're looking at Speed 2, where you're just like, this could have worked, but somehow someone wasn't giving each other notes, and half these people didn't want to be here.
Exactly. No, I again, if you're not a fan yet, you really should be. Really start at season 1 and just carry right through.
Oh, totally. And
it's all out there somewhere to watch.
Faid is also just a very underrated villain. He's not Marwan, I get it, but he's way more notable. I think that's the other thing. Some of the underlings, I mean, we talk about Peter Kingsley as being the definitive villain in season 2, and he's only in like 4 episodes, much like much like Alan Wilson in season 7. And it's just like, the thing is, you just like, until that point, you don't really remember any of the other villains in season 2. It's kind of dissolve the various anti-American terrorists who are kind of interesting, but you just don't know them right away because they're just so many subplots. And then will he or will he not kill Nina? And it's like, it kind of had that same kind of deal, and then it just didn't execute it as neatly, but it was still intriguing. It was impossible to watch one episode, and so like we say, if you just give it time, you will line up to it. It would have actually been interesting seeing where they took the Russian guys, and it is kind of funny how when some of them were incriminated in season 8 later, I was like, go figure. I always had a bad feeling about those fuckers when I saw them in 5.
I always had a bad feeling about this.
Yuri, and well played by Nick Jameson, who's voiced Emperor Palpatine in a bunch of Star Wars video games.
Nick Jameson, honestly, is one of the nicest guys. And again, I'm sorry if I sound like name dropping. We just did this event, and I sat and talked to Nick Jameson for like an hour. After we were just I was worn down, and we were just talking. And the funny thing was, he wrote Slow Ride. He was one of the co-writers of Slow Ride by the band Foghat.
Really?
we're just like talking off the cuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, when I was in Foghat." I'm like, "What did you just say?" "Oh yeah, I was in the band Foghat for a while, and and you go back and check the credits, and yeah, Nick Jameson.
He has a huge music career, but yeah, no one ever knew he was involved with that because he lent his voice to just singing and cartoons.
Yeah, super humble with everybody. Like again, that's been my experience with the people that were involved in the show. I've met people from other shows and have not had all the same experiences, but there's just something about this show that they would use the word family a lot. They really on the commentary, they would always talk about being a family, and they would say, "Oh, it sounds trite," but it's true. Like
and they really love playing against each other, and I mean, I even lit up when I even saw both him and the Fayed actor on later seasons of The Last Ship, because they had really meaty like guest star roles, and you're like, okay, awesome. And but yeah, I mean, more or less, it was also intriguing too how, like you say, they all got these endless talent, and when you see them light up, is like, well, it's a shame that they're only in like one part of the industry, like they're only showing up in, say, video games or cartoons, but the right people know them, and so eventually someone will definitely keep using them in a cool,
Yeah, if you check out the 20 Years of 24 podcast, you'll hear multiple stories of actors that said on the set, Kiefer would just walk up and say, "You're doing a great job," and then he'd walk away. And he said that would just light them up, like, because it's like you're not sure if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not sure if you're.
Because you hate that when someone many people we like or hate who do that, where they just flat out, "Oh, bye guys." Yeah. It's like no.
And they said
gotta be here all night. So do you.
He didn't make a big fanfare of it. He didn't want to announce to everybody that this person's doing a great job, but he would literally just make a point of coming over and saying,
just a simple reminder.
Yeah, hey, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, and I think it just helped that everyone just clicked from that season on, and the writers already had big plans, but the actors were more than willing, because they knew this was going to go somewhere big, and they knew they wanted to actually do them proud and really truly give them a part. They weren't just going to be random people in the background who had nothing to do. No, they wanted to actually just be a team. And it just helped that they, again, had been in so many different parts of the industry, so they had experience. And I mean, Carlos Bernard even would keep joking. He's like, anything prior to 24 sucks. This is the final part where I'm not just a guy who gets shot or blown away or it's cheesy. And it's like, it's fair enough. Other than that Babylon 5 movie, you're not in many good movies, Carlos, and that's fine. I get it. Soap operas do pay the bills. So
I've watched several of them. Like, as I prepare for the interviews, I've watched a lot of people's
a great actress. So.
worst. Watch their worst movies and their best ones. And the great stories that I get is that you wouldn't believe what great role I got because I was in this horrible B movie. Like, again, the casting director saw me in it and decided to go with it. Like, it's hilarious to hear that if you just keep working,
they're casting for all the same stuff. And if they know you're a cool just person, then they'll definitely try and, keep your number handy. And
yeah, absolutely.
If you're known for just kind of having an attitude or just not giving a performance, then that can really work against you. So
oh yeah, the sooner people that works in life too. Like, it's like,
correct. If I know you're slacking off,
if you're the complainer all the time, guess what? They're not going to call you back.
No.
Why
would we?
Yeah.
Has been victimized again. Evidence points to Islamic militants.
Mr. President, the people are losing faith in our ability to protect them.
And we're still certain Assad is behind all these attacks, right?
We were contacted 4 days ago by a man named Fayed. He offered to give us Assad's location for a list of demands, and one of them was Jack Bauer.
We're asking you to sacrifice yourself so we can eliminate Assad.
CTO is about to kill the wrong man. Assad isn't behind these attacks. He's come here to stop me.
Two Cobra attack helicopters will hit Assad's location in 15 minutes.
Fayed set you up. He provided CTU with the coordinates to this house. Move! Do you know what this is?
This
It's for a nuclear device.
Suitcase nukes. Small enough for one individual to carry in a crowded city. Many thousands would die instantly.
How many people died in this?
No less than 12,000.
4 more tactical nuclear weapons were stolen, along with the one that went off.
What happened? I made a mess. Dad's trying to clean it up.
So the nukes that these terrorists are in possession of, including the one that was just detonated in Valencia, was stolen from you.
Yes.
I know what you're trying to cover up. Dad Gray already told me.
Did he? Jack, Assad just gave us the name of a Russian general. Fayed contacto about the nukes. General's name is Gradenko. Do you know him?
No.
Turns out your father does.
Get them to me. I had no choice.
The bombs are secure. Jack's all right. Hello.
Jack.
Audrey.
Help me, Jack.
Hello, Mr. Bauer. The Russian suitcase nukes you captured, we want the component from the triggering mechanism. You give me the component, I give you Audrey.
The Russians will know that we supplied you with the algorithm. You would be starting World War III.
There's a problem. The circuit board is damaged.
Have you finished repairing the sub-circuit board?
Almost.
Got Philip Bauer calling for you.
I want my grandson.
You give me that?
And I'll give you the FB sub-circuit board.
You're working with the Chinese.
I was.
Philip Bauer is a sociopath. How can you even entertain the thought of negotiating with him?
We can't afford not to.
Joshua.
They've just located Philip Bauer on an oil drilling platform.
Here's the sub-circuit board.
We're assuming so, sir.
I recommend an air attack.
No one on that platform is going to survive.
Jack, don't even think about it. You don't want to get yourself killed, you won't save Josh.
Where's the boy? Not too late. Josh! We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here now. Go. Move.
Where's Jack? He's with my grandpa!
Cool. This has been fun.
This has been a blast. I'm so glad you got to do this. You're welcome back anytime for any other
Thank
show
you.
or movie to take down, especially franchise. And yeah, everyone, please, what can we expect next? Like that you'll also be tackling on the podcast network.
We were looking at doing similar conventions for other shows. We're talking to a couple different showrunners. It was an event. We had 400 people involved, like fans and guests from 22 countries, I think it was, and we got really good press on it. So we're looking at other shows that I'm a big fan of the show Superstore, so we're looking at the possibility of doing this with Superstore and doing an online convention. Other than that, we got a new podcast in the works. We're going to call it And Eric Roberts, and you'll hear more about that in the future. And you're going to be involved in that as well. We're going to get you on that podcast.
Promise.
So,
I will make time for you, brother.
Yeah. We're doing our best to bring people together at this very bizarre time in history. And I think in many ways, the tech that we have, the Zoom, all the type of tech that we can use actually does help to bring us together and kind of relieve, connect people when we need to be connected. So that's I came out of that last experience feeling like it was the craziest thing I'd ever done. But
so
anything else is going to be manageable at this point. And
you're right. This is second nature now.
Yeah. And there was such a genuine respect and love for the people that were involved and for the fans that if I can be involved in connecting people with their fans directly, then I'm happy to keep doing that. So that's where I'm headed.
Stellar. And this is a great way to start off the new year.
Absolutely. Think big.
No, thank you. I mean, you just reminded everyone again why fandom just gels with just so many just storylines and what have you. And I'm glad you're able to just remind everyone of all just the memories and why we love what we love and why the passion showed on screen instead of just, let's just stroke egos for a minute. It's like, no, let's go more than that. Let's go big. Why are we still talking about this, years later?
Hey, if I can operate on the same level that Jimmy Fallon is, That's I hadn't started a pod. I didn't start a podcast up until March.
You have talent. Here's the difference.
March of 2020. I'd listened to a lot of podcasts. I had thought about doing one, but didn't get into it. And then I went,
for the right time.
Everybody's operating from home, so the bar's kind of low right now. So I'm going to get in and try to figure it out. And that's what I've done. And I love
Sweet.
it. And I enjoy being a part of this podcast, especially one that's named after Jack Bauer. The Jacked Up podcast. This is amazing.
I should have shown you the old logo we had.
I'm in the right place today. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. This is a blast.
You owned this. You aced it. You summed up why. Again, just we look forward to seeing these guys, and it's easy to, if we can geek out like we do with all these Seinfeld Star Trek people, it's like this is Geekdom 3.0.
Exactly.
Maybe 5.0 even.
5.0, yeah. 24.0.
Hawaii 24.0. There you go.
Hawaii 24.0.
That's what's so funny too, is how so many of those guys I've noticed were working on those shows. And it's like, yeah, makes sense. Yeah. There's got to be something on CBS that has some of the 24 family. And so now I'm just glad, again, it's like the FBI shows have a lot of casting.
Well, Carlos Bernard directed episodes.
Yeah, he's directed at least 4 episodes of both Hawaii and FBI. And I even liked how Oe, the actor played by played by Zeko Zaki, he was in the final 24 season. So I was like,
was he really?
Yeah, he was one of the guys with the drone and.
Oh, come on.
Where Aaron Carter has to
okay, I'm going back to watch it. I'm going back to watch it again.
Oh, totally.
I love FBI. He's one of my favorite characters on TV right now.
Just a damn good character, him and Maggie, and we did an episode on it, and it was funny. We briefly talked about it when we were talking about One Chicago, which has similar characters, and it was just kind of similar. How it was funny is like my pal Alexander Ingham, who works for you might have seen the blog spot for fan-sided Precinct TV. It was funny. We all had a different take on it. She's like, yeah, I think International is the best one. And my co-host for the FBI episode is like, I'm really digging the original. And I'm just like, yeah, Most Wanted is kind of my deal. So it was just funny how we all had our, kind of like the Law and Orders and CSIs, we all had our personal favorite of the entire franchise where it got at its best core. And I think that's kind of where you could say with 24 is like, what, you love it all, but which of the seasons are the highlight? Whereas like can't miss. Everyone should have this as top 10 of the TV year.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try?
They must be destroyed on sight!
The new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of...
They must be destroyed on sight!
As needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
did
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-last plot holes of gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked